A man with lilac eyes begins by recounting that he was just a librarian when a fire broke out, forcing him to transmigrate to another world to be reborn. In this new world, martial artists are highly respected, but that's not the case for him, as he is nothing more than a terrible teacher. When people transmigrate to another world, they usually gain a special talent, but this did not happen to him, and he is on the verge of being fired. Students gossip in the corridors that Zhang Zhuan caused one of his students to have a high deviation and even rank last in the teacher qualification evaluation. Despised by everyone and unable to win the favor of Shen Bairu, he is even banned from entering the library. Reflecting, he concludes that being weak in this place is a sin, and becoming strong is the only way out. Determined to radically change his life, in the Heavenly Path Library, he finally gains a special talent, allowing him not only to see through a person's weaknesses, but also to create unique martial arts and techniques. Thus, he begins his comeback, attracting students by identifying what troubles them most and makes them weak. Shocked, they wonder how the teacher knows these things. He replies that if they become his students, he will teach them techniques to overcome their weaknesses. In this way, he spreads his teachings across the world. However, opponents also arise along the way. Other teachers accuse Zhang Zhuan of coercing students and ruining the reputation of the Hongshan Academy. But none of this matters to him. The only thing he wants is to become stronger and make everyone fear him, breaking the shackles of that world. His main goal is to become immortal and fight his way to the top. In the beginning, he was just a librarian on Earth who left due to a fire and transmigrated to another world, where Zhang Zhuan intimidates a student by cornering her against the wall. He claims to be the most famous teacher in the academy and says she should become his student. She asks if his name is Lu San Laoshi. Denying it, he claims to be much better. He believes his new life would be like in novels, where after transmigrating, he would overcome obstacles and take his place at the top of the world. To his surprise, he was wrong, and when he introduces himself to the girl, all he receives is a loud slap across the face. Annoyed, she storms off, shouting that this place is actually the last class and not the top one, meaning it's a fraud, while the teacher remains on the ground begging her to reconsider. He wonders why it's so hard to recruit a student. His class had no one, making him the weakest teacher in the entire academy. His only claim to fame was causing one of his students to have a high deviation, leaving everyone afraid to be taught by him. Trying to drown his sorrows, he turned to drinking and eventually met his end. Taking over the life of the failed teacher, Zhang must fix the mess and recruit students to avoid being expelled. A young girl with pink hair suddenly enters the room and asks again if this is Lu San Lashi's class. Realizing his trick of switching the signs for the classes worked, he prepares to succeed this time. With poised, he asks if the girl wants to become the student of the person she's looking for. Excitedly, she replies yes, because that man is the most amazing teacher in the academy and everyone knows it's an honor to be one of his students. Countering, he says that teachers are like shoes and that one must see if the shoe fits, as teaching methods need to suit the student. And even if the teacher isn't very famous, if their teaching suits the student, it will see better and faster results. The girl then says her older brother said the same thing, but she doesn't know which teacher suits her. Zhang Zhuan then says that as a teacher, if he sees a confused student, he will help them. If she shows him her abilities, he can recommend a suitable teacher for her. She thanks him and prepares to demonstrate her skills. Watching, the man realizes he can't discern anything, so he decides to praise the student to deceive her. When asked what he thinks of her cultivation foundation, he lies, saying her foundation is solid and that she has excellent talent, adding that she is a prodigy in martial arts, which makes her happy. He says every move she made was full of strength, and all she needs to do is keep cultivating diligently to have a bright future. The young girl then reveals that her legs were injured previously, and that the doctor said she would make no further progress in training for the rest of her life, shocking him. To get out of the situation, he asks her if she thinks he wouldn't notice such an obvious problem and says that even with this obstacle, she will be blessed with an opportunity. Curious, she asks what opportunity that would be. Striking an encouraging pose, he says that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Happy, she asks if there is still hope for her case. The man responds that only 3 teachers at the academy would be capable of offering such an opportunity, and 2 of them have already stopped accepting students, leaving only him. Confused, the girl asks what she should do, and when she inquires if he is still accepting students, he says he is indifferent to fame and fortune. Kneeling, the young woman begs him to accept her and says she will give her best effort in cultivation, making him happy to have succeeded. Quickly, he accepts and grabs the young woman's hand to seal a commitment. He pricks his finger to collect a small drop of blood and lets it fall on a blue stone. Not understanding the speed of the process, the student silently wonders why she was accepted so quickly and why the teachers seemed to have everything ready in advance. He asks her what her name is, and she introduces herself as Wang Ying. The conversation ends, and the teacher asks her to return tomorrow to start lessons, and she agrees as she leaves the class. Alone, he says he no longer needs to worry about being expelled and has finally started walking his path, convinced he will live a good life. However, something strange begins to happen, and he starts falling into a kind of magical spiral. When he opens his eyes and tries to reorganize his thoughts, he finds himself standing in front of the gates of the Heavenly Path Library. Confused, he wonders if he has crossed into another world or if this is a delayed welcome gift, but he decides to enter to take a look and see if he can find anything good. Zhang is impressed by the structure of the place, which is infinitely better than the library he worked at in his previous life, but he wonders if there is anything there besides books. He dislikes the idea of only getting a pile of books, as they won't help him in his future battles. Still, he opts to check what the stack of papers is about first. It might be about superior techniques. His hand passes through when he tries to grab one of the books, and he realizes they aren't physical. Irritated, he remarks that this way he can't even throw them at his enemies in the future. The place then disappears, and he thinks he had a dream that didn't help him at all since it provided nothing useful. Disappointed, he decides to go eat something. He plans to think later about how to trick more students. Suddenly, someone calls his name. Another teacher boasts about the students he recruited and mocks the fact that Zhang Juan seemingly didn't manage to get any. Retorting, he says the man doesn't need to show off, and that whether he has students or not is none of his business. Laughing, the other teacher tells his students that Zhang was the only teacher to score 0 in the qualification test. The students mock him, recalling the educator's greatest failure. Indignant, Zhang asks if they are done and tells them to leave because it's time for his lunch break. Teacher Teo Xiang says he is infamous and asks if he doesn't feel a shred of shame. In response, Zhang says no, explaining that he created a story, and now all the freshmen know his name, unlike Kao, who is just a nobody, making him angry. Wang Ying appears to defend her teacher, saying he is kind because he accepted her as a student and assured her that with effort, he would rank her first among the freshmen. A man reminds her that her older brother sent her to choose Lu Zhanlaoxi and advises her to leave this teacher's class before her brother finds out. Overhearing the conversation, the bragging teacher laughs, knowing that if the girl leaves, Zhang will have no students left. The man accompanying the girl announces that she will withdraw from the lessons. Trying to reverse the situation, Zhang asks the young woman if she knows how many people wanted to be his students and were rejected, and if she's sure she wants to do this. He then asks the man beside her if he is sure he can take responsibility if no other teacher accepts the girl because she left his class. Delivering a checkmate, Zhang says the man should relax because with his lessons, Yang, who already has talent, will soar in cultivation. Intervening in the conversation, Kao Xiang says that if she leaves Zhang's class, he promises to accept her as his student. Outraged, the red-haired teacher accuses him of publicly stealing his students and says he will report him. The other, laughing, claims he isn't doing anything wrong. He challenges him to a competition, but after some reflection, Zhang realizes his opponent's teachings and cultivation foundation are superior, leaving him no chance. Noticing that refusing would mean losing his only student, he decides to accept despite being at a disadvantage. In the training field, everyone gathers to watch the competition. The rules are that each teacher must advise the other student on their weaknesses, and the one who provides the best guidance will be the winner. Wang Ying starts by showing her punching skills, scoring 53 points. The challenging teacher points out that while her punches are strong, her legs seem weak and concludes that she must have injured them, leaving Zhang Juan considered inferior, impressed by his opponent's sharp observation and wondering what he should do. As advice, Kao Xiang tells the student he will show her a way to practice punches even with leg injuries. From afar, Zhang cannot hear what they are discussing. Ready to try again, the girl positions herself, follows the advice, and lets the power fill her body. She unleashes her punch with full force, achieving a score of 63, 10 kilograms more than before. Everyone watching is impressed by what happens. It's now Zhang Juan's turn to advise his opponent's student. Extending his hand, he asks them to wait, arguing that it's unfair. He questions why he should lose his student if he is defeated while the other teacher faces no consequences if the reverse happens. Stammering, his opponent then declares that if Zhang wins, Liu Yang will become his student, reassuring the boy that this won't happen. Satisfied with the agreement, the lilac-eyed teacher agrees to proceed. While observing the young man practice, Zhang realizes there's no way out since he doesn't even know his technique, let alone his weakness. The silver-haired student thinks he'd rather die than be forced to have a teacher who scored 0 in the qualification test. Sweating nervously, Zhang tries to detect any flaws in the boy's technique, but he is suddenly transported again to the library, where a huge message states that the heavens are incomplete, leaving him confused. A book floats into his hands and he realizes it is real. On the cover is the name of the student he is evaluating, and the pages contain the boy's entire history, including his technique and all 12 of his weaknesses. The first is that the boy uses too much force in his feints, and the last is that his left arm is stronger, preventing him from using his full strength because he relies on his right. Returning from what feels like a dream, Zhang sees that the boy has scored 62 kilograms. In his thoughts, Zhang realizes that everyone has weaknesses recorded in books, and that's the purpose of the Heavenly Path Library. He is thrilled with this welcome gift, deciding to show what a transmigrator is capable of doing. He tells the boy that his punching technique has precisely 12 weaknesses, causing his opponent to laugh. The other students also burst into laughter, claiming that the rising punch technique has no flaws and that even the director couldn't find any. Doubted, Zhang announces that he won't continue and calls his student, saying they're wasting time with this competition. Believing in him, the opposing teacher asks him to demonstrate what he knows. Turning to Liu Yang, Zhang tells him his technique focuses on his right hand and that for better results, he should use his left hand instead. The young man questions if Zhang is sure, while the other students laugh, saying this will ruin the entire technique. Kao Xiang, claiming to know everything about the boy's strength, tells him to proceed so they can end this quickly. Obeying, the student goes to deliver the punch with his left hand, leaving his teacher astonished by the score he achieves. The boy hits 123 kilograms. The audience is incredulous at how the force nearly doubled, something even the most famous teacher couldn't achieve. Impressed by his own punch, the young man wonders if he really did that, while Zhang smiles, knowing his advice worked. Sarcastically, Zhang asks if his opponent has anything else to say, pointing out that his student's strength increased by 20%, while the opponent's student's strength more than doubled. The teacher then takes out his blue stone and erases Liu Yang's name, who will now become the student of the victorious teacher. As he leaves the training field, other students try to convince him to reconsider his decision. Angry, he thinks that his opponent got lucky this time and that it won't happen again next time. Throwing a stone at the boy, the red-haired teacher orders him to sign his name on the object. Even though he disagrees, the boy does as instructed since no other teacher would accept him. At the academy, everyone talks about what happened. They discuss how Zhang Juan, despite being the teacher who ranked last in the qualification test, managed to win, and how he increased his student's strength to over 100 kilograms. A blue-haired girl doubts the claim and says that if Lu Zhanlaoxi couldn't do it, no one could, insisting it must have been sheer luck. Her friend disagrees, pointing out that the strength increased significantly. Irritated, she retorts, saying she only joined the academy to have the best teacher, and now her friend is suggesting that the best isn't even a match for the worst. She vows to expose him. In his room, the victorious teacher, feeling invincible, celebrates, confident that no martial art or technique can remain a mystery to him with the library's help. Suddenly, the blue-haired girl shows up looking for him. He asks what the problem is. She explains what she has heard and asks if he can provide her with advice to also increase her strength by over 100%. Declining, he says he is busy, irritating the young woman, who claims he isn't doing anything. He responds that he is recruiting students and therefore has no time to waste on someone rude. With a bizarre expression, she asks what she needs to do for him to give her some advice. He replies that she needs to become his student. The student agrees for now, but her plan is to recognize Luke's son as her teacher after exposing Jean. Giving an ultimatum, she says that if he doesn't provide any useful advice, she'll tell everyone that he's nothing but a fraud. Her friends, overhearing from outside, worry about her impulsive attitude. They decide to inform Mr. Yao about what is happening. Zhang Xuan refuses to recognize her as a student due to her attitude, saying he only likes obedient children. Trying to mask her anger at being rejected, Zhao Ya apologizes for her rudeness and asks the teacher to accept her request. He responds by saying she's being a good girl now, and that if she wants to be his student, she should start by cleaning his room and the bathroom outside, and if she passes his inspection, he will accept her. Clenching her teeth, the young woman tells him not to push it. Sitting back, the red-haired man says that if she can't handle such a basic task, she should leave. Feeding a smile, she grabs the broom and begins cleaning. While sweeping, she vows silently that she won't let him escape. The room shines and he praises her for doing a good job. Then he takes out his blue stone and tells her to insert her identification. With a fake smile and fire in her eyes, the girl says she looks forward to his instructions and can't wait to get stronger, or better yet, ruin his reputation. Her first lesson is to punch the measuring stone so the teacher can assess her strength. Doubting that he can deduce anything just from a punch, she gets into position. Seeing that the girl is using her martial arts, he visits the Heavenly Path library to find a book containing her weaknesses. Searching through the shelves, he quickly locates it. Reading, he learns that Zhao Ye is the daughter of the Lord of Bayou City and a martial artist at the peak of the Wondan Juxi stage with a total of 27 weaknesses. Unimpressed with what he reads, he comments that despite being a lord's daughter, she doesn't seem particularly remarkable. But upon returning to the real world, he sees that she scored 123 kilograms with a single punch. Clapping his hands, he praises her, saying that even without systematic instruction, she is quite powerful, and she thanks him. Continuing with her plan, she asks for advice. She intends to record his response in her jade crystal to leave him with no way out when she exposes him. Getting straight to the point, he tells her there's something wrong with her. Angry, she says that's impossible and asks if he's out of his mind. Clarifying, the teacher says he didn't mean to offend her, but rather that she is ill. Denying it, she insists she's fine, and that he doesn't know anything about her to make such claims. To prove his point, Zhang asks if she feels discomfort in the Danchong and Juk acupoints, and if she gets restless on full moon nights with a flushed body. Confident, he further asks if it's true that she cannot calm herself even when she tries her best. In complete shock, the student asks how he knows such things. Promptly, he replies that it's because he is her teacher. The young woman then asks if he could help her with this. He says yes and instructs her to come to class the next day, where he will teach her how to resolve the issue. She then asks if he is serious. Ending the conversation, the man says that if she doesn't believe him, she can go to other teachers, and she replies that she's not doubting him and will be there tomorrow. Surprising the student, he asks if she still plans to keep the recording jade crystal. Apologizing, she breaks it with her hands. As she leaves, the young woman is amazed at how the teacher, with just a glance, managed to diagnose her condition and discover the recorder. He bids her farewell and asks her not to be late tomorrow, while Zhao Ya is enchanted by his talent, wondering how he could have scored 0 in the qualification test. Unexpectedly, an older man comes running, calling out to the student. He is Yao Han, the butler from Bayou City. The girl asks what her uncle is doing there, and Zhang, overhearing, decides to return. The man, intrigued, asks if she accepted that man as her teacher, and she confirms. Angrily, the man tells the teacher that he is not qualified to be her teacher and must remove her name from his student list, or he will have the director fire him. Interrupting her uncle, the girl declares that she is willing to be the teacher's student and asks him not to interfere. Indignant, the man asks if the teacher can enlighten her and make her power grow faster. Embarrassed, she admits he hasn't yet, but begs her uncle not to pressure her further. Seeing the broken recording jade crystal on the ground, the man asks what happened there. Filled with anger, he questions the teacher about what he did to the young woman. Threatening to attack, he accuses Zhang of tricking a minor into becoming his student. In response, Zhang Zhuan explains that it's all a misunderstanding. Trying to calm her uncle, Zhao Ye says he is overreacting and warns that if he continues, she won't speak to him again. Surprised, he steps back while the young woman leads him away, saying she needs to pack her things and prepare for class the next day. The lilac-eyed teacher states that he only sees her as his student and that Yao doesn't need to be so upset. Elsewhere in the academy, two friends are talking and one tells Zhang Yang not to feel bad about not being accepted by Wan Laoshi. In response, the boy says it's easy for his friend to say since he was accepted by the best spear arts teacher and doesn't have to feel like a failure. Seeing the sign for the first classroom, his friend changes the subject and suggests they go in, but Zhang Yang refuses. Encouraging him while pulling his arm, the friend suggests the teacher there might also be good with spear techniques, but Yang notes how shabby the place looks. Inside, Zhang asks the boy if he truly wants to be his student. Taking the lead, his friend insists that he does, saying he's very skilled in spear techniques and needs a guide. The teacher asks the young man to show him what he can do. As he stands up, excited for the chance to gain another student, the boys head outside for the test. Holding his spear, the student thinks that judging by the quality of the environment, the teacher must be average, but he decides that if the teacher isn't qualified, he won't acknowledge him as his teacher. Demonstrating his skills, the boy strikes the measuring stone, achieving a score of 123 kilograms. After finishing, he asks the teacher for guidance, but notices that Zhang doesn't seem to have even watched his performance. Sighing in disappointment, he thinks he is in the hands of a bad teacher. Suddenly, Zhang Zhuan asks him if he has ever suffered in a relationship or been humiliated. Shocked, the boy admits that he once had a crush on a girl, but insists it's irrelevant. His friend interjects, asking who humiliated him, but the boy says they'll talk about it later, and turning back to the teacher, claims it's a very personal matter. Explaining why it's relevant, Zhang says that the boy's techniques are strong and decisive, and that he used to act courageously without worrying about consequences. But now he has become timid and fears failure after being rejected, which makes him hesitant and confused, reducing the power of his spear. Zhang Yang, astonished, asks how the teacher knows about his failed relationship and how he understands his personality so well. In response, the teacher explains that the boy's techniques reflect his mental state, and if his mind is not in order, neither will his martial arts be. Still shocked, the boys realize the man truly has sharp insight. Moving on to advice, Zhuan tells the student that he must be strong enough to earn respect in a relationship. Otherwise, he will be looked down upon. Therefore, at this moment, he should open his mind and cultivate intensely to regain confidence in himself. Placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, Zhuan says life is full of ups and downs, and no one should dismiss a young man like him. Taking the advice to heart, the boy tries again. Amazingly, he achieves a score of 235 kilograms. His friend, dumbfounded, exclaims that his power has practically doubled. The boy, kneeling, pleads with the teacher to accept him as a student, and Zhuan instructs him to register his name in the blue sphere. Thinking to himself that if he had known about the teacher's talent, he would have chosen him earlier, the other boy wonders why he never heard of such a skilled spear techniques teacher before. Out loud, he asks for the teacher's name. Zhuan introduces himself, and the boys realize that his name matches that of the academy's so-called worst teacher. Smiling, he confirms that he is indeed the useless teacher everyone talks about. Leaving the boys dumbfounded with his admission, Yang asks how such rumors could be spread about him, and the teacher responds that people are always envious of the most talented. He adds that he owes his abilities to the library. His new student then promises to restore his reputation, but Zhuan says it doesn't matter. The boys should simply focus on working hard on his spear techniques. He tells him not to be late for class the next day. The boys bid farewell and leave, with Yang's friend now admitting he envies him for having such an incredible teacher. Alone again, Zhang Zhuan celebrates having 4 students while wondering who could have rejected the spear-wielding boy. Without more admission tokens, he decides to go to the logistics department to request more. Arriving, he is met with a sarcastic remark from someone asking if he isn't the most popular teacher at Hongshan Academy. Xuan Biao, the head of the logistics department, is accompanied by other men and asks what Zhang is doing there. Zhuan recalls that the body's former owner was always sabotaged by this man simply for not flattering him, realizing that his lack of tokens is likely Qian's doing. Extending his hand, Zhang requests more tokens, surprising the director, who questions how he already used the previous ones. The men burst into laughter, mocking the idea that the teacher who ranked last in the qualifications has supposedly used up all his tokens. With a challenging look, Zhang asks if the man would like to bet, and Qian agrees, asking what he has to offer. Zhuan stakes his reputation, declaring that the winner can publicly slap the loser 3 times. Convinced Zhang is bluffing, Qian accepts the challenge, stating that if Zhang loses, he'll be slapped 3 times by each of the men accompanying Qian. They begin checking the ledger, which holds all the information about the teachers, as Qian watches eagerly. To their surprise, they find that 4 students have indeed accepted Zhang as their teacher. In disbelief, the director decides to see for himself. Flipping through the pages, he not only confirms the claim, but also discovers that Zhang's 4 students are ranked among the top 100 in the admission exam. Furious, he accuses Zhang of using underhanded methods, claiming that none of those students would willingly choose him as their teacher. With a smile on his face, Zhang reminds him it's time to fulfill the bet. Refusing, the men declare that Zhang cannot act against them and should stop being so arrogant, as they could easily overpower him. Once again, Zhang asks if they will honor their promise, and one of the men confirms their refusal, calling on Lai Yuan to teach him a lesson. Obeying, Lai Yuan steps forward to attack. Meanwhile, Quan wonders how someone at the 3-Dan Zhenki Peak could possibly confront a martial artist at 4-Dan Pigu. Regarding the levels, it is revealed that there are 9 cultivation levels for martial artists, called Dans, each divided into initial, intermediate, advanced, and peak stages. The higher the Dan, the more challenging it is to cultivate. Teacher Zhang Zhuan is at the peak of 3-Dan Zhenki, but faces Lai Yuan, who is 1 level above. In the confrontation, the men notice someone has been injured and assume it's the red-haired teacher, but they are soon shocked to realize it's actually Lai Yuan. The director wonders how this could be possible when Lai Yuan was a level higher. Fearless, the red-haired teacher invites the others to join the fight. All of them rush toward him, claiming his victory must have been mere luck. Consulting the library, Zhang Zhuan counters them 1 by 1, leaving no chance for a counterattack. Dusting off his hands, he reveals that he struck the men's life gate acupoints and recommends they lie down. Almost all cultivators possess a life gate acupoint, and even a child can defeat someone if they strike it. The location of these acupoints is unknown even to those dearest to the cultivator, but thanks to his special talent, Zhang knows exactly where they are. Kneeling on the ground, Qian Biao asks how Zhang knows about his acupoints. In his thoughts, Zhang laughs, realizing that thanks to the Heavenly Path library, he can defeat anyone, even after just transmigrating from Earth. Out loud, he responds that they made a bet and should have honored it instead of fighting. The director warns that because Zhang is of a lower level, he could be accused of attacking other teachers in public, which might result in his license being revoked. Demanding that Zhang kneel before them, the other men claim that if he doesn't comply, he will be dismissed. Zhang questions why they're now resorting to rules after failing to win with strength. Deciding to follow the rules as well, He reminds the director that 6 months ago, he stole Chen Ming Laoxi's treasure to please his concubine. He also recalls how his student self-harmed 3 years ago due to Bai Lin's insults, and how Du Chun poisoned his friend with wine to seize his property. Stunned, the men wonder how Zhang knows such things. Falling to their knees, they beg for forgiveness. Zhang asserts that he won't expose their wrongdoings as long as they refrain from committing further cruelties. Handing over a box of tokens, Qian Biao promises never to repeat his actions and says Zhang can return anytime to collect more if needed. Terrified, they all bid him farewell with forced friendliness. Confident, Zhang concludes that transmigrating to this world was truly fortunate, as it had always been his dream to live such a wonderful life. While walking, he notices what seems to be a commotion involving 3 students and wonders what's happening. 2 boys try to calm the third, urging him not to jump into the lake. The distressed boy declares he no longer wants to live while clinging to one of the other boys' legs, pleading not to be stopped. Observing the situation, Zhang laughs. He walks away, focusing on recruiting more students. However, something unexpected happens, catching him off guard. The boy who wanted to jump into the lake is now clinging to Zhang's leg. Calling for help, Zhang turns to the other 2 boys who quickly run away. Patiently, Zhang asks the boy to let go of his leg, but the boy begs, saying he has failed 10 times to find a teacher and pleads for mercy, asking to be accepted. Agreeing, Zhang tells the boy to demonstrate his abilities. Standing up, the boy grabs a pile of bricks, breaking each one on different parts of his body. Shocked, Zhang realizes the boy is only hurting himself. Consulting the library, Zhang discovers that Yuan Tao is a delinquent cultivator and martial artist at the initial stage of Wundan Juxi, with 18 weaknesses. The boy has only one bloodline, as the ancestral emperor's lineage hasn't awakened yet. Reading further, Zhang learns about the importance of bloodlines and innate bodies in this world. If a cultivator possesses either and uses it properly, their cultivation speed will be significantly superior. There are various types of innate bodies, such as virginal body, pure yin body, pure yang body, and golden body. Similarly, there are various bloodlines including ancestral, new, inherited, and mutant bloodlines. The ancestral emperor's bloodline is among the most defensively invincible, and once a martial artist reaches a high level with it, nothing can harm them. Surprised by this discovery, Zhang realizes he must take the boy as his student. The young man is overjoyed at the news and quickly writes his name on the token. Excited to finally have a teacher, Zhang tells him not to get too proud. At that moment, Shang Bin, the grandson of Shang Chen, an elder of the academy, approaches. He comments that, just like his student, the teacher is also pathetic. Accompanying him is Shen Biru, the most beautiful teacher in the academy, admired by many, including the former Zhang Zhuan and Shang Bin, who detests Zhang for it. The teacher asks who the man thinks he is insulting. The man responds that he is talking about him. Due to a slip of the tongue, the ambitious teacher mocks his opponent, making the female teacher laugh and infuriating him with the insult. Realizing he is in front of someone he considers a goddess, he tries to calm down to avoid embarrassing himself further. In a provocative tone, he states that everyone at the academy knows the level of Zhang's new student, who ranked last and whose punches only measure 15 kilograms. Mockingly, he adds that the two are a perfect match since they are both at the bottom of the rankings. Yuan Tao, unaware that his new teacher was so poorly regarded, wonders what to do. Zhang then tells the green-haired man to leave. Obliging, the man leads Biru away, claiming that the situation might affect her impeccable temper. She turns to the red-haired teacher and tells him that even though he performed poorly in the qualification test, he shouldn't give up on improving his scores next time. Grateful, Zhang says he knows his new student can't do much yet, but he has potential and with the right guidance will stand out one day. Speaking to Shang Chen, she excuses herself, asking him kindly not to follow her. Turning his anger back to Zhang, Shang declares he will teach him a lesson. Without fear, Zhang invites him to go ahead. Trying to salvage the interaction with the female teacher, Shang suggests they have dinner together or coffee the next day. Meanwhile, Zhang's new student tries to sneak away, but Zhang notices and points out that his classroom is not in that direction. Trying to excuse himself, the boy claims he is too weak and will damage his teacher's reputation. Giving him no escape, Zhang declares that the boy is now his student for life, alive or dead. The student asks what will happen if he doesn't attend class tomorrow. Zhang replies that he will throw him into the same lake he was about to jump into earlier as they walk toward the classroom. Later, in the dormitory, Zhang Zhuan evaluates his situation and realizes that since it's the last day of recruitment, he will only have 5 students. His classes start the next day and he needs to understand his cultivation foundation. His cultivation method is called the 9 Dons formula of Hongshan, corresponding to the 9 Dons of cultivation stages, one of the most popular techniques at the academy. However, among all the academy's teachers, he is the only one still at the peak of 3 Dan. He must accelerate his progress. Standing before the real-world library, he wonders if he can solve his problem. Gathering spiritual energy particles in his danshan to condense them into Kai requires immense effort, and common cultivators take 3 years to advance a stage. Because it's so tedious, he is reluctant to do it, but if his students discover his level, they might abandon him. Using his special ability, he identifies the flaws in his technique, but there are so many that it's beyond repair. One solution would be to acquire numerous different cultivation techniques and use them to compensate for each other. Entering the building, he greets Elder Mo. The Elder, one of the library's caretakers, asks why Zhang is there so late. Zhang explains that he's about to break through 3 Dan Zhenki, but is confused and needs guidance. Pleased, the Elder praises his dedication, saying the academy needs more young people like him. Pointing out that the 3 Dan secret books are on the 4th shelf, the Elder lets him enter alone. Regretfully, Elder Mo mutters to himself outside, lamenting that Zhang isn't more talented despite being a good person. He wishes him success in the future. Inside, facing the vast number of books, Zhang reflects that the academy library is as impressive as modern libraries. Picking up a book on offensive tactics, he considers which ones to use. But he finds over 3,000 errors, noting that the 9 Dan's formula seems decent with only 1,000 mistakes. However, finding the correct method amid so much misinformation would take a lifetime. Since he's close to advancing, he decides to review only the chapter on breakthroughs, feeling relieved as the page has just 10 errors. Lacking the solutions to fix the mistakes, his best option is to compile other books, bypassing the errors and combining all the correct content. Observing the books and deciding his course of action, he recognizes that he should also acquire techniques for 4 Dan and 5 Dan. Outside, Elder Mo notices Zhang Zhuan merely flipping through the books and concludes that he lacks determination and is impatient. After registering the techniques, Zhang prepares to leave, but the Elder calls out to him. He asks how Zhang resolved his problems so quickly, and whether he doesn't need to take any copies. Zhang responds that the issue wasn't significant. Thanking the Elder, Zhang bids him farewell, but since he flipped through many books without taking any copies, Elder Mo decides to inform the director to address the improper conduct of teachers. Back in his dormitory, Zhang Zhuan wonders how he will manage to finish copying thousands of books. Suddenly, he is transported to the Heavenly Path Library, leaving him confused. Books fly everywhere, and he notices they are the same ones he had just copied from the Academy Library. The books form a spiral, and at its center, a bright yellow light emerges, forcing him to shield his eyes. A single manuscript then flies into his hand, and he wonders if it could be a collection of the thousands of secret books. Flipping through it, he is shocked to find that not only is it a collection, but it contains only the correct parts. However, the manual does not belong to any of the original secret books, and the cultivation methods described are entirely new. Noticing that the cover lacks a title, he wonders if he should name it. Since the accurate content was chosen by the Heavenly Path Library, Zhang decides to name it Heavenly Path Divine Technique. Instantly, the title appears on the cover. Cultivating through the night, he is astonished to find he has advanced stages incredibly quickly. It took him only half a night to progress from 3 Dan Zhenki to the peak of 5 Dan Dingli, while also acquiring superior Zhenki. However, achieving such a feat typically requires cultivation techniques of at least Saint or Divine level. He concludes that this happened because of his special talent, which allowed him to use his formula while avoiding all errors. This means that with the help of the Heavenly Path Library, he can also create cultivation books of Saint or Divine level. He explains that there are 3 levels of Ki: superior, medium, and inferior, and 5 categories of cultivation techniques: divine, saint, spiritual, phantasmal, and mortal. These are further divided into inferior, medium, superior, and peak grades, confirming that his Zhenki is indeed superior. Deciding to test his newfound strength, Zhang ventures out in the middle of the night. Heading to the measuring stone, he strikes with a powerful blow. Zhang Zhuan is stunned to score 8 ding, equivalent to the strength of a Pixie Realm expert with 4 open acupoints. With this level of power, he remarks that the Heavenly Path Divine Technique has done more than refine his body. He decides to keep his achievement a secret. Suddenly, he hears a noise and wonders what it could be. Going to check, he notices someone approaching his room and fears they might be trying to cause trouble. A masked man, holding what seems to be a knife, declares he is there to take revenge for what the professor did to the young lady. Hiding, Zhang decides to remove his uniform to prevent the intruder from discovering his identity. But the man turns around and spots him. To disguise himself, Zhang covers his face with his coat and claims he is there to eliminate the professor who sleeps in that dormitory. He asks who the man is. Without introducing himself, the man tells Zhang to go first, saying he will stand guard outside. Surprised, Zhang asks why the man came if not for the same purpose. The intruder replies that he only came to teach the professor a lesson. He adds that his goal is to injure a specific part of the professor's body to prevent him from being rude to the young lady again. Relieved, Zhang thinks that if he had gone to bed instead of cultivating, bad things might have happened. Leaning against the dormitory wall, the intruder again tells Zhang to go ahead. Refusing, Zhang says that if he goes first, the man's revenge cannot be completed. Reflecting on the coincidence of meeting someone with the same goal that night, the masked man suggests they enter together. To avoid suspicion, Zhang agrees. Observing the intruder's movements, Zhang realizes he is at the peak of 5 Dan. Immediately, the man instructs Zhang to use his technique to suppress his Zhenki and make his body lighter. Using his special ability, Zhang consults the library and retrieves a book titled Yao Han. He discovers that the intruder is actually the butler of the Bayou City Lord's mansion and is at the early stage of 6 Dan Pixu with 8 open acupoints. Angry that he had done nothing to deserve the man's aggression, Zhang Zhuan decides to ignore the disparity in cultivation levels, feeling it is necessary to teach him a lesson right then and there. Knowing he can't face him directly, Zhang consults his opponent's weaknesses. The first one reveals that the life gate acupoint is located on the man's buttocks. Smiling, Zhang makes a noise, prompting the butler to ask what it was. Zhang dismissively says it's nothing. Suddenly, Zhang points to the sky, shouting that he saw a UFO. Distracted, the intruder looks up to search for it. Taking the opportunity, Zhang delivers a precise kick to the man's life gate acupoint. With Yao Han on the ground, Zhang believes he can defeat him as long as he targets the life gate and exploits his weaknesses. Intrigued and injured, the butler asks why Zhang is attacking him after they had seemingly agreed to go after Xuan together. With a dark expression, Zhang prepares to strike again, leaving the intruder fearful. Satisfied with his success in defeating Zhao Ya's uncle, Zhang steps back. Wounded, Yao Han wonders why Zhang, despite being at 5 Dan Dingli, didn't use techniques, accusing him of being worse than a gangster. Seeing his opponent stand up, Zhang remembers that he can't afford to be identified. Deciding to pretend to be Shang Bin, he acts the part, claiming that Zhang Xuan had annoyed him earlier and needed to be taught a lesson. He adds that if Yao Han acted first, Shen Biru would think it was his fault. Therefore, Yao should blame himself for his poor timing. Throwing a threatening look, Zhang tells the butler to leave. Piecing it together, Yao Han stumbles away. Relieved, Zhang reflects that if it weren't for his cultivation, he doesn't know what might have happened. He concludes that strength is the most important thing in this world. The next morning, Zhang begins his first class with roll call. Noticing Zhao Ya, the niece of the man he fought the night before, is absent, Yuan Tao informs him she'll arrive later and Zhang starts teaching. He explains that his teaching method is different from others. He focuses on tailoring lessons to each student's aptitude. He then moves to an adjoining room, calling students in one by one. The first to be called is Wang Ying. Slightly apprehensive, the girl follows him. Her anxiety stems from the fact that she had researched him after returning home discovering that Zhang was a powerless fraud. She decided to leave his tutelage. In the adjoining room, Zhang asks her to demonstrate her strength by punching his palm. She hesitates, asking if it's really okay, and he assures her it is. His goal is to identify her weaknesses because the Heavenly Path library hadn't activated during their first meeting. The young woman complies with his request. Just as she prepares to ask to leave his class, Zhang interrupts her by asking if her leg was injured in a fight 2 years ago. Startled, she asks how he knows this. Zhang explains that there are 3 acupoints in a person's legs, and during that fight, her strength acupoint was sealed, causing her blood flow to reverse. Shocked, she recalls that Master Yuan Yu mentioned something similar but was unable to heal her, stating that only a master with superior zhenki could fix it. She asks if Zhang can heal her, and he casually replies that it's easy. This shocks her further, as she thought she would carry the injury for life. Holding what looks like a needle, Zhang says he called her in to resolve the problem. He instructs her to sit and relax her body. Obeying, Wang Ying begins to feel a newfound trust in her teacher. He throws the silver object at her acupoint. She recognizes the method as telekinetic acupuncture, a skill only accessible to users at 5 Dan Dingli or above. She wonders how a supposedly fraudulent teacher managed to perform such a feat. Her thoughts are interrupted as she feels the pain of zhenqi being transferred, realizing that it is crystal clear and pure, the hallmark of superior zhenqi, something unheard of in the Tamswen kingdom. But how could this be possible? Feeling a comfort she had never experienced, she notices her leg is now incomparably agile, as though freed from heavy shackles. Overwhelmed, she is overjoyed, believing this day would never come. Kneeling, she thanks him for the cure. Zhang tells her to return to the class to cultivate. Outside, Liu Yang announces that he plans to leave Zhang's class, asking the others who will join him. Yuan Tao raises his hand and says he would like to leave, but fears the teacher will get angry and punish them. The white-haired boy says he doesn't care, as anything is better than suffering a kai deviation from being taught by him. He adds that when Wang Ying returns, she will have a horrible expression. Footsteps are heard, and everyone turns around. The girl appears, smiling and well, accompanied by the teacher, surprising the others who question Yang about what he had said earlier. Yang wonders if the teacher really gave her useful advice. Suddenly, Zhao Yao arrives, apologizing for being late, accompanied by her uncle, whose face is bandaged. Mocking him, Zhang asks who the deformed man next to her is. Angrily, Yao Han demands to know who Zhang is calling deformed. He declares that he will stay to observe the lesson and see how Zhang teaches the students, while his niece urges him to calm down. Zhang states that his class needs silence and that useless people are not welcome. Furious, the butler threatens to attack him right there. Trying to defuse the situation, Zhang tells Zhao Ya that he won't be able to help her with her uncle present. Reluctantly, she sends Yao Han away. Outside, he fumes, warning Zhang that it's better for him if he doesn't discover his weaknesses. Zhang then calls the white-haired boy. Though reluctant to go, the boy is curious to hear what advice Zhang will give, stating that depending on its quality, he might leave the class. Entering the room, he asks if he should demonstrate his technique, but Zhang tells him isn't necessary. Explaining his refusal, Zhang says that despite his young age, the boy has achieved early success in the Rising Punch and mastered the Dragon Punch. The boy asks how Zhang knows he has been cultivating the Dragon Punch since he kept it a secret, even from his family, to grow stronger. Zhang explains that he deduced it because when the boy demonstrated the Rising Punch, he noticed hints of the Dragon Punch technique. Shocked, Liu Yang asks how Zhang discerned that from just one punch. Ignoring the question, Zhang asks if Yang experiences pain under his armpit and itching at the Jianjing acupoint whenever he practices. Terrified, the boy asks how Zhang knows this. Zhang explains that the Dragon Punch emphasizes strength in every inch of the body, and if a practitioner reaches 4 Dan Pigu, their zhenki would have no difficulty cultivating it. But if someone at 1 Dan Juxi with a weak body forces themselves to cultivate this martial art, it causes an injury that will worsen over time. The boy begins to sweat nervously. Zhang warns that if he continues cultivating the technique, the muscles in his arm will be destroyed. He then asks if Yang experiences spasms while sleeping. Falling to his knees, the boy begs Zhang to help him. Comforting him, Zhang advises him to stop cultivating the technique and focus on building his foundation. He promises to help with the other issues. Impressed, the boy reflects on how he once felt resentful about accepting Zhang as his teacher, but now realizes how lucky he is to be his student. Leaving the room, his classmate asks if he quit the class. He denies it and asks what they're talking about. With the guidance he received, he declares he'll never leave the lessons and asks the others if they aren't ashamed of considering it. Leaving the group confused and speechless. It's now Zhao Ya's turn and she is shocked when Zhang informs her she has a pure yin body. Explaining, Zhang says she isn't ill as he initially thought but possesses exceptionally strong yin zhenki that needs to be properly directed. He adds that her choice of the Beibao technique, which is yin in nature, has only worsened her condition due to her body type. The only solution is to find a technique capable of unlocking her body's potential efficiently, and she asks which one. He promises to search the library tomorrow to find one suitable for her. Grateful, she thanks him, satisfied with his advice. Meanwhile, Yuan Tao, holding the 9 Downs formula of Hongshan, begins crying and thanks Zhang for giving him the technique. He rushes to hug Zhang, leaving him uncomfortable. Nearly crushed in the boy's arms, Zhang reflects that the altered version of the formula, though only slightly improved, is more effective than the original. He also notes that Zheng Yang's power has evolved after receiving someone's advice. With everyone gathered, the teacher tells the students that they must persist in their cultivation. Unexpectedly, someone kicks the door open, calling out his name. The intruder is Wang Tao, Wang Ying's older brother, who angrily demands to know how Zhang dares to coerce his little sister. Furious, he gives Zhang 10 seconds to dismiss his sister and Zhao Yao from his classes. He threatens that if Zhang refuses, even as a teacher, he will suffer the consequences. Unafraid, Zhang responds that he is conducting a class and orders Wang Tao to leave. Wang Tao refuses, mocking Zhang, asking what kind of lesson he could teach with such a low cultivation level, and stating that calling him Lashi is just a formality. Suddenly, a large, glowing yellow tiger appears behind Zhang. Wang Tao is startled, as he has only ever felt such a powerful aura from his master. He can't believe it's coming from someone supposedly only at 3 Dan. Refusing to back down and risk his reputation, Wang Tao attacks. Zhang stops him with just 2 fingers, leaving Wang Tao stunned and confused. He declares that even elders at 6 Dan Pixu couldn't accomplish such a feat. He concludes it must be pure luck and shouts at Zhang to release his weapon, while questioning if Zhang is still at 3 Dan Zhenqi. However, he finds it impossible given Zhang's last qualification results. Even if Zhang had advanced, he could only be at 4 Dan Pigu, which wouldn't enable him to stop an attack with just 2 fingers. Zhang then throws Wang Tao out of the room, telling him to leave. A voice outside shouts that someone has died as a bandaged man listens intently behind the door, assuming that Wang Tao is fighting Zhang Zhuan. He opens the door slightly to peek inside. Startled by what he sees, he quickly shuts it again as Wang Tao flies toward him. The force rips the door off its hinges, sending it flying far away. Wang Tao lands on the door, which crashes onto the man eavesdropping nearby. Unbothered, Zhang announces that the class must continue. The students, shocked, analyze what they just witnessed, noting that the attack carried the full strength of a 4 Dan Pigu martial artist. Amazed, they remark how easily Wang Tao was thrown and start to suspect that Zhang is not the least skilled teacher at the academy. They conclude that Zhang might be hiding his true abilities. Outside, the bandaged man asks Wang Tao if he wasn't supposed to beat up Zhang. Wang Tao explains that he had acquired a battle technique but ended up suffering a backlash from its power, resulting in an accident. The other man asks if Wang Tao was able to expose Zhang's true nature. Wang Tao replies that he was close but refrained because interrupting a class violates academy rules. He suggests they wait nearby. While waiting, the bandaged man says he has a question for Wang Tao. Without hesitation, he asks if there is a teacher at the academy with Bai in her name and whether anyone is courting her. He learns about Shen Biru Laoshi and how both Shang Bin and Zhang Zhuan had tried to court her. Listening carefully, the bandaged man realizes he needs to investigate whether there was a conflict between the 2 men, as it might provide the answers he seeks. Elsewhere, in another room, someone asks if Zhang Xuan has taken one of the students. Kao Xiang confirms this and says he wants to speak with Elder Shang, who oversees academy affairs. Irritated, the green-haired young man says there's no need to bother his grandfather as he has long wanted to teach Zhang Zhuan a lesson himself. Determined, he decides to discuss other matters with his grandfather and declares that he only needs to cripple Zhang Zhuan. As they approach, they notice Wang Tao and the bandaged man. Curious, Shang Bin asks why Wang Tao is there instead of cultivating with his master. Surprised, Wang Tao explains that his sister had been coerced into attending Zhang Zhuan's classes and he was trying to bring her back. Upon hearing this, Shang Bin concludes that Miss Wang was also deceived and decides to teach Zhang Zhuan a lesson. The bandaged man introduces himself as Yao Han, the butler of the Lord of Bayou City, adding that his lady was also coerced. Understanding the situation, Shang Bin tells them to follow him to the classroom. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Zhang Zhuan is teaching the 9 Downs formula of Hongshan. His explanation is clear, and all the students pay close attention, learning from his teachings. Noticing the students' attitudes, Zhang Zhuan wonders what is wrong with them, to which they respond that the teacher is incredible. The door suddenly swings open. The group led by Shang Bin enters the room. Before saying anything, Zhang wonders why they are there. Intimidatingly, the green-haired man asks how Zhang dares to manipulate and deceive students. Trying to resume his class, Zhang asks to discuss the matter after the lesson ends, but his opponent interrupts, claiming that Zhang isn't fooling anyone. Shang orders all the students to leave, threatening that Zhang will spend the rest of the semester in a wheelchair if he refuses. Unfazed, Zhang asks if he plans to resort to violence, pointing out that it violates academy rules prohibiting fights between teachers on the premises. Mockingly, Chang Laoshi replies that he isn't afraid of punishment, as no one at the academy would defend Zhang. The argument continues, and Zhang asks if Shang isn't worried that Shen Biru Laoshi will be angry with him. Shang retorts that he doesn't care. Zhang tells her, as he's there to teach him a lesson. Yao Han suddenly realizes he now knows who attacked him. Everyone looks on in shock after the accusation is made. Blood sprays through the air. Shang, bewildered, asks why he was attacked and insists the bandaged man must be mistaken. Outraged, Yo declares he knows exactly what he's doing and accuses Shang of knowing as well. Furious about being hit, Shang warns that Yao will pay if he strikes again, but the butler attacks him once more. With his nose bleeding, the green-haired man doesn't have time to defend himself and is assaulted with multiple blows. Cao Xiang and Wang Tao, stunned, wonder what is happening and consider intervening. Zhang Zhuan feels triumphant as everything is unfolding just as he had anticipated. The 2 observers try to break up the fight, but the butler, enraged, declares he hasn't hit Shang enough. Severely beaten, Shang exclaims he has never suffered like this in his life and vows to fight Yao to the death. Zhang Zhuan steps in to restore order, stating that disputes must be resolved outside the classroom or he will report the incident to the administration. Embarrassed, Shang decides to leave, not wanting other teachers to see him in such a state. Later, the students discuss how exciting the class was and gossip about the fight. Yao Han's mistress asks him what is wrong, prompting him to explain. Wang Ting thanks the teacher after class. Still enraged by the beating, Shang insists he never offended the butler and doesn't understand why he was attacked. He asks Kao Xiang if Liu Yang transferred classes willingly or was coerced. The teacher confidently asserts that the student didn't make the change of his own free will. As proof, Shang suggests a will comprehension test and concludes it's the best way to get rid of Zhang Zhuan using the harshest punishment allowed by the test. Later, another room is shown, where someone is being ordered to kneel. It's Wang Ting, visibly frightened and being pressured to admit her mistakes. She's accompanied by an older man, who demands to know why she chose the worst teacher at the academy. The young woman tries to explain to her father, insisting that Zhang Laoshi isn't what he thinks and is very talented. The father listens attentively but doesn't believe a word. Irritated, he declares the teacher is useless and reminds her that he caused one of his students to suffer a Genki deviation. Realizing he can't control his daughter, he concedes not to interfere in her choice of teacher, but he questions whether she understands Zhang Zhuan's teaching standards. Other boys approach, advising the pink-haired girl to listen to reason and avoid being deceived. Trying to persuade her, they point out that she should follow Wang Yan's example. He chose Luke's son as his teacher and increased his strength by 40%. Pressuring her further, Wang Ting counters that Zhang Zhuan guided her to a 100% improvement and even healed her leg. Mocking her claim, they ask how that's possible when even Master Yuan Yu couldn't heal her leg. Laughing, they dismiss her, insisting it's impossible for someone as incompetent as Zhang to have done what she claims. Fuming with anger, the girl shouts that no one has the right to insult her teacher, especially when none of them have ever attended his classes. After the initial shock, the group bursts into laughter. Wang Ting's father becomes enraged by her words and declares that if she doesn't leave Zhang's class, she will never set foot in their home again. Without a second thought, the girl leaves the house and is threatened not to return. Determined to prove her claim since no one believes her, she begins demonstrating her martial arts skills in front of everyone who doubted her. They are stunned by what they see, analyzing the strength of her punch and the agility of her once-injured leg. Confident, Wang Ting states that all her progress is due to Zhang's teachings. Perplexed, her father asks if it was truly Zhang who healed her leg. When she confirms, the father asks her to explain the content of Zhang's lessons. Hesitating, Wang Ting admits she remembers little of the content, describing it as very profound. Still unconvinced, her father questions how such a deep theory could exist about one Dan Juxi. The rest of the group also begins to wonder about the theory, remarking that if they had such lessons earlier, they would be unstoppable. Changing his stance, the father announces that his daughter no longer needs to leave Zhang's classes. Regretful, he even asks Wang Ting to see if Zhang would accept him as a student. The group overhears this and claims it's outrageous for a patriarch to request to be a student of a low-level teacher, saying it would disgrace the family. Wang Hong is left embarrassed. The family elders declare they are different and do not represent the family's image, stating they would like to join the classes instead. Confused, Wang Ting gives a nervous laugh. Elsewhere, Zhang Zhuan reflects on his cultivation foundation and his need to learn more about martial arts. He approaches Elder Mo. Suspicious, the elder asks why Zhang is there. Zhang explains that he would like to read some books on martial arts, but is denied the request. However, the elder grants him entry to the library, warning that if he catches Zhang loitering, he will punish him. Grateful, Zhang thanks him and enters, passing by a blonde girl. As he walks by, the girl is surprised that he didn't take the opportunity to talk to her. Inside the library, Zhang reflects on how difficult it was to access the place, realizing he might not be able to return. He also notes that the library isn't very large and decides that if he reads quickly, he can consume all the books in one go. Tired of overthinking, Zhang decides to start reading. Elder Mo notices something happening inside the library and becomes angry. Standing up, he wonders if Zhang is causing a commotion again. Quickly, he heads to the library, approaching the shelves, and sees Zhang reading every book he can find. Silently, Mo moves closer to figure out what Zhang is searching for. Wisteria Cultivation. This is the book Zhang has chosen. The title catches Mo's attention, and he wonders what kind of book Zhang is looking for. He then realizes Zhang isn't searching for anything specific, but is simply reading everything. Unconvinced, Mo vows to teach Zhang a lesson, believing he is there to create trouble. From afar, the blonde girl observes the scene, wondering if this is why the elder prohibited Zhang from entering the library. Still pondering, she questions whether Zhang came to the library to get her attention. Curious, she approaches Zhang and asks what he is doing. Without hesitation, he replies that he is reading. Annoyed by his response, the girl demands that Zhang leave immediately, insisting she won't fall for his trick. Ignoring her, Zhang turns his back and continues reading. Realizing this, the girl becomes furious and confronts him again, asking if he didn't hear her earlier. Hearing her complaints, Zhang calmly asks if she has a problem. He then firmly tells her to stop bothering him. Shocked by his sharp tone, the girl cannot believe he dared to speak to her like that. Still irritated, she declares she will wait to see how long Zhang continues his show. Glancing at her watch, she realizes he has been reading for 7 hours straight and concludes that he definitely wasn't trying to get her attention. After a long period of reading, Zhang declares that he has finally read all the books in the library. Looking around, he notices that the blonde girl still hasn't left even after the extended time he spent reading. Unbothered, Zhang decides to leave, but Elder Mo stops him. The elder states that Zhang is not welcome in the library and should not return for the next few days. Confused, Zhang asks for the reason behind this order. Elder Mo quickly explains that he noticed Zhang didn't take notes or study properly, and that it's impossible to read at such a pace. Relieved to understand the reason, Zhang realizes the elder is upset about how fast he reads and accepts the decision, bidding him farewell. As he leaves the building, the blonde girl follows him and asks him to wait a moment. Confused, Zhang asks what she wants. In friendliness, the girl says that after reading so many books, he must surely remember some content. Still perplexed, Zhang asks what she means. She explains that she saw him read the book 8 Methods of Pill Refinement and wants to ask him some questions. In her thoughts, the girl believes Zhang is lying about having read it and won't be able to answer her questions. Impatient, Zhang tells her to ask her questions quickly. All at once, the girl asks about the meaning of a passage in the book she had trouble understanding. Without hesitation, Zhang tells her she's mistaken. He corrects her phrasing and explains precisely what the passage means. Desperate, the girl admits she had deliberately altered the phrase to trick him, yet he still answered correctly. Elder Mo observes the scene from a short distance. He decides to ask Zhang a question based on the library's books. Exhausted, Zhang finds the question trivial since it's part of the basic cultivation cycle. Nonetheless, he answers in detail, even pointing out the shelf where the book is located and the page with the explanation. Shocked by Zhang's response, Mo is even more astonished, knowing that another elder once failed to answer the same question. Realizing what is happening, Mo asks Shen Lao she could join him. The two enter the library and check the books. They go to the location Zhang mentioned and find the book exactly where he said it would be. Completely stunned, they can't understand how Zhang cited the correct answer so quickly from such an obscure book. Interrupting their thoughts, Zhang says he's leaving unless they have more questions, but Shen asks him to wait. Frustrated, Mo reflects on whether this is truly the same person who ranked last in the teacher qualification evaluation. Tired of the conversation, Zhang asks the girl what she wants, stating that he plans to have dinner. She responds that she wants to eat too. Irritated, Zhang says that if she's hungry, she should go eat and doesn't need to tell him. Embarrassed, the girl clarifies that she's inviting him to dinner. She repeats that she will pay for the meal. Realizing the situation, Zhang accepts but demands a luxurious dinner. The two begin walking toward the restaurant, passing through fields. Anxious, Shen notices that Zhang hasn't said a word, even though they've been walking for a while. Looking back, she sees something unusual emanating from Zhang's body. In disbelief, she realizes it's the second stage of the mental state. She notes that only the academy director has ever achieved such a level. Shen deduces that Zhang's poor qualification results were forged and that he used underestimation as a way to train his mind. Angry, she vows to expose his fraud. Zhang realizes what happened and reverts to his normal mental state. He explains that he got distracted by the scenery, entered a trance, and reached the second layer of the mental state. Reflecting on his experiences, Zhang concludes that advancing quickly is normal for him. At the restaurant, they observe the chatter among the other patrons. Zhang is surprised by the quality of the establishment, while Shen wonders how much longer he will keep pretending. The two are invited into the luxurious restaurant. Elsewhere, Cao Xiang appears with the will comprehension test and informs Shang Laoshi that the academy will evaluate Liu Yang the following day. Still heavily bruised, Shang Bin listens carefully, noting that his main obstacle is his grandfather, who won't heed his instructions for now. Seeking a solution, the blonde-haired man suggests that with good food and drink, he might be able to make the elder listen. A waiter approaches Shang and informs him that everything they ordered has been delivered and to let him know if they need anything else. Shang responds that the sky-shattering lion is in the backyard and must be fed well. Cao remarks that he has heard that the Hongshan house is very powerful and that the manager is usually different, so he doesn't understand why they are receiving such hospitality. Knowing the answer, the green-haired man explains that the establishment is treating them well because Elder Hong, the owner, is a friend of his grandfather. As the conversation continues, the blonde teacher notices Shen Biru and Zhang Zhuan entering the restaurant. Seeing the pair, Shang becomes enraged, complaining that he has always invited Shen to dinner, but she never accepted. He decides to confront them. Cao stops him, suggesting he has a better idea. Curious, Shang asks what the idea is. At another table, Zhang Zhuan remarks that he is full after eating so much. Shen is upset that he focused solely on eating and ignored her presence. She asks for the bill. The total comes to 1,280 gold coins. Shocked by the amount, Shen asks why it's so expensive since she calculated it should be about 100 gold coins. The manager explains that one jar they ordered alone cost 1,200 gold coins. Arguing, Shen insists that the restaurant offered the product and she assumed it was complimentary. Looking to capitalize on the situation, the manager says she should have asked if it was free or not. Embarrassed, Shen admits she doesn't have enough money and asks to put it on a tab, promising to return and pay another day. Irritated, the owner declares that no one eats for free at his establishment and demands payment. Shang approaches, claiming he heard a commotion, and asks what is happening. Without delay, the manager explains that the pair doesn't have money to pay the bill. Seizing the opportunity, the green-haired man delivers a lecture accusing Zhang of embarrassing Shen with this situation. Zhang, confused, doesn't understand what Shang is talking about. Seeking to escalate, Shen says not to make excuses and expresses her disappointment in Zhang's behavior. In her thoughts, it's revealed that the plan was to serve a liquor Zhang couldn't afford and then rescue Shen from the situation. While attempting to humiliate Zhang, Shen calls out to Shang by name. Initially, Shang believes the plan worked. However, Shen is furious about what just transpired. Noticing her anger, Shang tries to explain his reasons. He is interrupted by Zhang, who clarifies that he didn't invite Shen, she invited him. Shang is stunned by this revelation, finding it impossible to believe. Still visibly upset, Shen confronts Shang, who begins sweating nervously. Cao Xing suggests that Shang help pay the bill as a way to make amends. Without hesitation, Shang declares he will pay Shen's entire bill, confident that this act will win her favor. Annoyed, Shen refuses his help, stating she will pay for what she consumed herself. Seeking a solution, Shen hands over a jade pendant worth at least 5,000 gold coins to the restaurant owner as collateral. Before leaving, she promises to return for the pendant once she has the money. Shang is baffled by her unexpected reaction and doesn't know how to respond. Zhang warns Shen not to leave something so valuable as a guarantee, adding that the meal wasn't worth such an amount. Still interfering, Zhang asserts that Shen is being scammed. The manager becomes furious, claiming he has always been honest with customers and is not cheating anyone. Kao and Bin celebrate that they have caused a significant problem for Zhang. Hearing everything, Shen fears Zhang is making trouble by accusing such a powerful establishment. Unfazed, Zhang declares that he will set aside formalities. He begins exposing the issues he found with the food, providing evidence of the recipes and pointing out missing ingredients. The growing crowd starts listening to the argument, hearing accusations that Mr. Wu is a fraud. Zhang doesn't stop and continues highlighting the restaurant's flaws. The manager panics, knowing that very few people were aware of the changes he made to the dishes. Cornered, he tries to defend himself, claiming that the dishes are served as advertised. Proving his point, Zhang Zhuan grabs the jar of drunken immortal liquor and pours its contents onto the ground. Everyone watches in astonishment, wondering what he will do next. Zhang quickly states that while the liquor would indeed be worth 1,200 gold coins, the one served isn't what it claims to be. He ignites the spilled liquid. Flames rise from the ground. The smoke emits a foul odor, causing everyone to complain about the stench. Zhang explains that the smell comes from the liquor being green rot brew instead of drunken immortal liquor. Outraged by the deception, the crowd starts yelling for refunds and accuses the restaurant of fraud. A whirlwind of thoughts races through the manager's mind as he struggles to understand how things escalated so quickly. Even Shang and Kao are baffled by the unfolding chaos. When they question Mr. Wu about what happened, the furious manager snaps, asking how they dare to ask such a thing. Shouting, he orders both of them to leave. Yelling even louder, he declares that neither of them is welcome at the restaurant anymore and demands they disappear. Pleased with his actions, Zhang Zhuan smugly states that he no longer needs to pay the bill and calls Shen to leave. Before departing, Shen reflects on how skilled Zhang is, having even identified the flaws in the dishes. Meanwhile, Zhang thinks to himself that he didn't realize the Heavenly Path library could be used for such purposes. As Zhang steps outside, Shen runs after him. She thanks him for his help, and Zhang replies that it was no problem. Without hesitation, Shen declares that since Zhang resolved the issue, he technically paid the bill, and next time, she will cover the cost. This surprises Zhang. Grateful but wary, Zhang declines, knowing he will have to deal with the two troublemakers if he accepts. Frustrated, Shen feels as though she's begging him for another meal. The two bid farewell. As Zhang walks away, he hears someone shouting his name, ordering him to stop. Shang approaches and demands that Zhang not run away. Shen asks what Shang is doing, and he tells her to step aside. Irritated, the green-haired man challenges Zhang Xuan to a fight, accusing him of hiding behind a woman. Mockingly, Zhang replies that hiding is one of his skills and suggests Shang find a woman to do the same for him. The remark hits Shang hard, making him conclude that Zhang doesn't behave like a typical man. Unfazed, Zhang declares he will leave Shen to deal with the duo as he has more important matters to attend to. Once again, Shang orders Zhang to stop, warning that he could be killed if he doesn't. Angrily, Shang commands the sky-shattering lion to attack. The beast appears, letting out a thunderous roar. Shang orders the lion to kill Zhang and promises to reward it with delicious food every day. Desperate, Shen tries to reason with Shang, warning that killing a fellow Academy member is a serious offense. Unconcerned, Shang claims that Zhang brought this upon himself and will call it self-defense. He repeats the order for the lion to kill Zhang. The lion starts moving, charging toward Zhang. Shen attempts to intervene, but is held back. The trio watches as the lion barrels toward Zhang. Anxious, Shen blames herself for everything that's happening. Observing the lion's movements, Shang assumes that Zhang is no longer moving and concludes that the teacher must be dead. Approaching Shen, who's on the ground, Shang tells her it's too late to do anything now. Panicked, Kao shouts to Shang, asking him to look at what's happening. Pointing ahead, Kao is completely terrified, but Shang doesn't understand why. When he finally looks, Shang screams in horror. Zhang is standing in front of the lion, which is now obeying his commands. No one understands how this happened. The lion is transformed into a giant, docile kitten, completely tamed by Zhang. Still believing in the beast's power, Shang orders it to attack Zhang again. He tries to bribe the animal with food, but now under Zhang's control, the lion follows Zhang's command to silence its former master. Furious, the beast charges at Shang. With tremendous force, it strikes Shang, sending him flying far away. Kao panics at the sight before him. The blonde-haired teacher runs desperately toward his friend, asking if he's okay. Crying, the green-haired man wonders what happened to his grandfather's domesticated beast. Back with Zhang Zhuang, the lion is being petted. Shen approaches and asks how Zhang managed to tame it. He explains that the lion is easy to talk to and suggests that perhaps it was easier because he's more attractive. Hearing this, Shen thinks to herself that Bin is far more dazzling and that the lion is a cruel beast. Unbothered, Zhang says goodbye and tells the lion it should return. In his thoughts, Zhang admits he hadn't expected the Heavenly Path library to reveal the weaknesses of a wild beast. Before leaving again, Shen interrupts him, insisting that he hasn't explained how he got the lion to obey. Tired of her persistence, Zhang tells her to stop bothering him. Annoyed, Shen yells at him, accusing him of being rude. Zhang apologizes and asks if he can leave now. Calming down, Shen agrees and says she will talk to him the next day. Back at the restaurant, Wu Chu faces consequences as he is confronted about altering the dish's recipes. Begging for forgiveness, the manager blames Zhang, saying he publicly exposed the problems and ruined the restaurant's reputation. Mr. Hong is unimpressed, calling the situation shameful and giving his employee 5 days to resolve the issue. Still in disbelief, the restaurant owner asks who Zhang Zhuan is, curious about the person who dared challenge him. The manager explains that Zhang is the teacher who placed last in the qualification exams. Breaking an object in his hand, Hong exclaims he can't believe a useless nobody destroyed his reputation. Later, Zhang Zhuan reflects that he only wanted to eat, but now has more important things to focus on, like advancing to the Pixie realm. However, in his current position, researching such techniques would require the elder's help. Zhang considers that asking for assistance might turn him into a test subject, but decides that everything would be solved if he could buy some technique books. The Tianu commercial district is introduced and Zhang remarks that the area is bustling, though he has no memories of it. He explains this is because in his past life, it wasn't common for someone like him to frequent such places. Some stones are displayed and Zhang accesses the Heavenly Path library to identify items of interest. Noticing Zhang's interest, a vendor asks what he's looking for and shows him some products. One item, a repeating bell, is presented and Zhang celebrates that it works. The vendor offers to sell it for 20 gold coins. Consulting the library, Zhang discovers it's a counterfeit item made by a level 1 artisan. Zhang shifts his attention to the frozen sun herb. The vendor claims to be only one in the district selling this product. He presents 2 boxes containing 5 stalks each, pricing them at 100 gold coins per stalk. Zhang asks to inspect them first. Using the library, Zhang confirms the vendor is truthful, and the product is indeed frozen sun herb. However, he notices one stalk appears slightly dried, concluding it was likely harvested incorrectly. Slightly irritated, the vendor insists it wasn't his fault, claiming the stalk was already like that when picked. Wanting to make a deal, the vendor offers to sell it at half price. Among the presented products, Zhang notices a matrix herb, far more expensive due to its effectiveness. He asks for that stock to be packaged. The vendor sets the price at 50 gold coins. Paying, and Zhang realizes he is almost out of money. Awkwardly, he offers to pay just 8 gold coins for the product. Completely enraged, the vendor refuses, arguing that he risked his life to harvest the stock. Zhang apologizes, saying he didn't mean to offend, and asked again if the vendor will sell it to him. Still angry, the vendor declares that herb is worth at least 30 to 40 gold coins. Remaining calm, Zhang says he wants to buy the herb, but doesn't have enough money, assuring that he won't cause trouble. Finding the situation absurd, the vendor calls Zhang an idiot for trying to buy without money. He declares it impossible and promises to kneel if convinced otherwise. Zhang maintains his composure, suggesting that if the vendor doesn't believe him, they could simply shake hands. As Zhang extends his hand, it becomes clear that the artisan is a 3-dan martial artist. Quickly, the artisan grabs Zhang's arm and asks how he dares to joke around, but Zhang calmly asks if he's from Xiapingyi. Shocked that it's true, the artisan wonders how Zhang knows that. Demonstrating his skills, Zhang continues mentioning the difficulties the man faced in the Taxuman forest and how he was bitten by a snake. Zhang provides additional details, leaving the artisan stunned. He declares that if he's wrong, he'll leave immediately. Desperate, the vendor begs Zhang to wait and asks if he knows how to heal the wounds caused by the snake. The artisan offers all his medicinal materials in exchange for help. Zhang explains the effects of the snake bite and that no medicine can reverse the condition. He states that the only cure is consuming the gallbladder of a frozen bamboo snake. Immediately, the vendor mentions he has access to such a creature and will try it. Finding the snake, the artisan slices it open, consumes the gallbladder, and discovers that it works. Falling to his knees, the vendor thanks Zhang profusely, offering all the frozen sun herbs for free. Laughing, Zhang jokes that he always knew he'd get what he wanted without paying. The vendor apologizes, admitting he didn't realize Zhang was so incredible. Nearby, Master Mo Yang arrives in the area, causing a commotion as people rush to meet him. It's explained that Mo Yang is a renowned appraiser. Zhang reflects that appraisers are professionals who evaluate treasures, but with the Heavenly Path library, he doesn't need their services. He requests that his herbs be set aside for later pickup. The crowd gathers around the appraiser, begging him to assess their treasures. Mo Yang announces that he will evaluate only 5 items and asks everyone to remain calm. Meanwhile, Zhang uses his knowledge to assess other items for free. The villagers beg Mo Yang to stay longer and not leave that evening. Moved by their enthusiasm, the appraiser agrees to evaluate 5 more treasures, bringing the total to 10. Desperate people offer money for appraisals. Offended, Mo Yang refuses, claiming he's there out of goodwill and has no interest in money. He scolds them, warning never to mention money in his presence again. Before starting, he cautions that not everyone will have a valuable treasure, but promises to provide guidance on acquiring one. The crowd clamors to be chosen, and an elderly man is selected. Mo Yang declares he will use ancient magic to identify the ideal treasure. He points to an ornamental vase from the late Kai dynasty as the perfect choice. Trusting the appraiser, the man agrees to purchase the item. Observing the scene, Zhang notices the vase is actually crafted by a level 1 artisan from southern Kailan. Initially, Zhang assumes the appraiser made an honest mistake. In an instant, Zhang is transported to the Heavenly Path library and wonders if Mo Yang used martial arts. A book appears before him. Flipping through its pages, Zhang finds a section stating that Mo Yang is a fraud and charlatan. Back in the commercial district, Zhang feels frustrated realizing the appraiser is a scammer. He grows upset thinking about how many people might have been deceived. When 1 slot remains, Mo Yang surprisingly calls on Zhang Zhuan. Stunned, Zhang is taken aback by being chosen. He quickly refuses, stating he doesn't need Mo Yang's help, but the appraiser doesn't accept no for an answer. Mo Yang insists that Zhang must want his assistance, and the crowd marvels at Zhang's defiance. Pressing on, Yang declares he won't take no for an answer and promises to help Zhang make a fortune. Claiming to understand Zhang's thoughts, the fraud assures him he'll provide protection, but first help him secure a treasure. Finding the appraiser narcissistic, Zhang grows tired of the conversation. Drawing in the crowd, Yang urges them not to covet the treasure he selects for Zhang. He presents an item, insisting Zhang buy it because it will bring great wealth. When the price is revealed to be 30,000 gold coins, everyone is stunned by how expensive the supposed treasure is. Irritated by the ordeal, Zhang shouts that he won't be fooled, calling the whole situation nonsense and reiterating that he doesn't want to buy anything. The crowd is shocked, unable to believe someone would dare speak to the appraiser in such a manner. Confused by Zhang's reaction, Mo Yang assumes there has been some misunderstanding. Bluntly, Zhang states that Mo Yang knows exactly what he's talking about and accuses him of being a fraud. Deeply offended, the appraiser insists he has been evaluating treasures for over 30 years and has helped countless people make money. Nearby spectators, hearing the accusations, defend the master, claiming he's a good person. Attempting to save face, Yang says he will forgive Zhang if he apologizes for his remarks. To prove his accusations, Zhang suggests polishing the purchased treasures, which would reveal their true fraudulent nature. Worried by the suggestion, Yang makes an excuse, claiming the pieces are too large and would take too much time to polish. Recognizing the excuse, Zhang realizes Yang already had a backup plan in case he was exposed. One of the spectators suggests Zhang evaluate a treasure himself, given his confidence in accusing the master of being a scammer. Yang supports the idea, offering Zhang a chance to evaluate a treasure and potentially increase its value. Without hesitation, Zhang accepts the challenge and agrees to evaluate a treasure. Before beginning, Zhang asks if he can choose the treasure first and pay after it is polished, but his request is denied. Mo Yang insists Zhang must pay up front, explaining that those are the rules. Yang adds that if the treasure's value increases, Zhang will pay the difference, but if it turns out to be worthless, Zhang must apologize. Calmly, Zhang agrees to the terms and begins selecting a treasure. While searching, Zhang thinks about how shameless Yang is for deceiving people and notes that now Yang is asking for humiliation. Quickly, Zhang selects a piece and asks for it to be polished in front of everyone. The polisher, realizing the situation, is momentarily shocked, but Yang orders the process to proceed as agreed. Before starting, the polisher considers ways to make Zhang look foolish. Meanwhile, Yang is confident, believing Zhang is naive, and that all the so-called treasures are random stones. After the polishing is complete, a crystal stone emerges. Everyone is stunned, realizing it is an invaluable and rare stone used to craft spectral-level weapons. Even the polisher is shocked by the stone's true value. The crowd begins speculating about its worth, concluding that due to its size, it must be worth at least 100,000 gold coins. Mo Yang dismisses the result as mere luck. Claiming he has urgent matters to attend to, Yang attempts to leave, but Zhang stops him, saying he has a question. Irritated, Yang asks what it is. Zhang calls an elderly man to step forward. The man who had purchased a previous treasure approaches, and Zhang explains that the piece was made by a level 1 artisan from southern Thailand and is worthless junk. Shocked, the man protests, saying it was Mo Yang who selected it for him. To prove his point, Zhang asks the man to press the vase's neck, stating that if it's genuine, it won't break, but if it's fake, it will. Following Zhang's instructions, the man presses the vase and it cracks. Devastated, the elderly man cannot believe what he sees. The crowd, witnessing the vase break, realizes it is indeed junk. Zhang advises the man to demand an explanation from Mo Yang. He proceeds to explain to everyone how Yang's scheme works and how he deceives people. With the scam exposed, the crowd becomes furious with Yang for tricking them. Desperate to defend himself, Yang claims that even the best appraisers make mistakes and pleads with the crowd not to believe Zhang. Another man throws down stones he had purchased, discovering they too are worthless. Others follow suit, realizing all their items are fake. Trying to calm the crowd, Yang asks to speak with them, but they argue that he had no intention of talking when he was deceiving them. The crowd assaults Yang, while Zhang feels relieved to have brought justice. Later, Zhang arrives at a bookstore called Huang Yu. Observing the shop, he enters to look for martial arts books. An attendant approaches and asks if he's there to buy or browse books. Seeking advice, Zhang asks if they have any books for 6-dan martial artists, but the woman assumes he must be joking. She explains that the books are valuable and therefore not available for sale in such a small business. Understanding the situation, Zhang asks for suggestions on where he might find them. The woman considers how to help him and mentions that some skilled martial artists might have these books at home. She adds that she knows a man who owns such works but warns that he has a reputation for being grumpy. Unbothered, Zhang asks where the man lives and the woman states that she's headed to visit him and that Zhang can accompany her. On the way, the two chat, and the woman explains that her recommendation is very studious and is known as a former teacher of Shenjui. She warns Zhang that Mr. Lu Chen despises nonsense, advising him to keep quiet if he wants access to the books. Not wanting to cause trouble, she tells Zhang to request the books himself. They continue walking, with the woman giving instructions on how to behave in the presence of the man. They arrive at a house and Zhang asks if it's where the teacher of the Majesty lives. A horse approaches. The rider, atop the horse, comments on the coincidence of meeting Yu there. Embarrassed, the woman clarifies that her name is Huang Yu and that she's not particularly close to him. Laughing, the rider says it's normal to call her more casually since their families have known each other for generations. The woman asks if he's there to visit Lu Chen. Dismounting, the rider asks who the man accompanying her is and why she brought a stranger to the house. Snapping back, she says it's none of his business. The two start arguing about whether it's appropriate to walk around with strangers. Noticing the tone, Zhang interjects, saying it's none of the man's concern who he is. Shocked, Yu asks Zhang if he knows who the man is and how he dares speak to him like that. She explains that he is Bai's son, the only son of Lord Zhen and Wine, the top official of the Tamswen Kingdom. Unfazed, Zhang asks who this lord is. Panicked, Yu realizes that Zhang's ignorance might lead to trouble if he says anything inappropriate. The door opens. Mr. Cheng greets them and welcomes them inside while Bai explains that he's seeking guidance from Master Lu. Cheng invites them to enter and wait in the living room. As they walk through the house, Zhang comments on the decor, noting that the courtyard resembles a natural ink painting. Everyone is confused by his remark and Yu asks if Zhang knows about paintings. Cheng confirms that Zhang's observations are correct, explaining that Master Lu decorated the house as if it were a painting. The group arrives at a room and is asked to wait there. While waiting, Yu asks Zhang if he knows how to paint and he responds that he only felt the courtyard's arrangement had the essence of a painting. Bai accuses Zhang of pretending and advises Yu not to listen to him. Confused, Yu asks what Bai knows. The two start arguing, with Yu defending her new companion and Bai insisting that Zhang is just a fraud. Feeling out of place and irritated, Zhang laments being dragged into this situation when he only came to borrow some books. Mr. Lu approaches and the argument ceases immediately. They all stand and show their respect as Lu asks who commented that the courtyard looked like a painting. Trying to take the spotlight, Bai interrupts, suggesting the master shouldn't take Zhang's words seriously. Annoyed, Lu orders Bai to be quiet. He adds that he's glad they appreciated the decor and asks for help evaluating a painting. He hands the painting to Zhang. Yu hints to Zhang that this might be a test and that if he passes, he could borrow as many books as he wants. Slightly exasperated, Zhang thinks that he wouldn't have mentioned the courtyard if he'd known it would lead to this. Master Lu interrupts his thoughts, asking if there's a problem. Attempting to comply, Zhang touches the painting and begins evaluating it. Suddenly, he has a vision. Zhang asks the master if he truly wants to hear his opinion on the piece. Summarizing in one word, Zhang declares the painting to be trash. Alarmed, Cheng warns that the painting was created by Master Lu himself. Yu is mortified, deeply embarrassed by Zhang's harsh evaluation. Bai mocks the situation mercilessly. The master calls for silence. Embarrassed, Zhang apologizes, stating he did not mean to offend. Calmly, Lu explains that it doesn't matter who painted it. He just wants to know its flaws and asks for an honest evaluation. Zhang then says that even a street painter could produce something of this level, but adds that if they investigate further, they'll be shocked. Lu asks what he means by investigating further. Without hesitation, Zhang pulls a knife from his pocket, saying he will demonstrate if the master doesn't mind. Bai tries to stop him, saying the painting is too valuable to destroy. Nevertheless, Zhang cuts the paper in half. Everyone watches intently as Zhang reveals that the rice paper painting is fake. He shows that the real painting is printed on the scroll beneath the rice paper. The room is filled with shock. Laughing, Master Lu finds it unbelievable that the young man noticed, as he had never shown anyone such a technique. Recognizing Zhang's talent, Lu asks him to evaluate another painting. Zhang states that the painting looks good but has a flaw in its composition. As an appraiser, he points out that the wild beast in the painting was likely never seen by the master and was instead imagined. Lu is stunned, as this is true, and can't fathom how Zhang discerned this just by looking. Wasting no time, Lu asks Zhang to explain the flaw in detail. Yu stands speechless, astonished that the master is seeking advice from a teenager. Zhang elaborates on the composition and explains the issues with the painting. Applauding, the master praises Zhang for his insights and agrees with his observations. Without delay, the master asks Yu to formally introduce him to her companion. It is only then that Yu realizes she doesn't even know Zhang's name, leaving Bai shocked. Perplexed, Lu declares that Zhang should be treated as a senior and addressed as a master. The Lord's son finds it laughable to treat someone under 20 as a senior. Irritated, Lu demands silence and orders everyone to show respect to Zhang Juan. Feeling awkward, Zhang explains that he understood the paintings by chance and does not deserve to be called a master for it. Still, Lu insists that only someone who has studied deeply could know such things, adding that Zhang is not so different from him. On this note, Lu says everyone else is a junior and should accept Zhang's reprimands if they misbehave. Bai and Yu find this outrageous given that they are nearly the same age as Zhang. Finally, the master asks what he can do for Zhang and what brings him to the house. Zhang explains that he heard about the books and wants to borrow some on 6-day martial artist cultivation techniques. Lu states that he has many books and will gladly lend them to Zhang in his study. Sheng attempts to object. Still, the master insists it would be an honor to show Zhang his collection. The two proceed to the study. Inside, Lu points out where Zhang can find the books he's looking for. Zhang approaches the shelf. Quickly, he begins reading, worrying the master, who assumes Zhang doesn't like what he's found. Looking up, Zhang notices more books and Lu explains they were left by his son. Lu shares that his son loves brute strength and collected many secret manuals, bringing the most relevant ones to his father's library. Zhang asks to take a look and the master consents. Once again, Zhang flips through the pages rapidly, leaving the master stunned, assuming Zhang dislikes the material. After reviewing many pages, Zhang celebrates having finally discovered the correct cultivation method. Holding a book, Zhang decides to start reading thoroughly. The book provides information about Shenki. Zhang continues reading and making observations about the content and what he is learning. Despite all his power, Zhang marvels at how everything is perfectly compiled by the Heavenly Path Library. He names the book Golden Body of the Heavenly Path and resolves to cultivate its teachings diligently. As he observes his body, Zhang notices a golden light emanating from him and realizes he unconsciously completed the cultivation of the golden body. Confused, the master wonders what Zhang is doing. Trying to understand, he touches Zhang's shoulder and calls his name. Upon contact, the master is instantly repelled and sent flying across the room. Zhang panics and calls out for Master Lu. The elder stands up, saying he is fine. Quickly, Zhang rushes to his side, asking why he fell so suddenly while helping him up. As he touches the elder again, Lu is forcefully thrown to the ground. The first thought that crosses Zhang's mind is that the master is trying to frame him. He attempts to approach again, but Lu orders him to stay still. Getting up from the floor, the elder asks if the young man has made an advancement. Embarrassed, Zhang admits that he has but didn't realize his improvement was this significant. Trying to comprehend the situation, the master starts pondering what could have happened to make Zhang so strong in such a short time. Without finding answers, he decides to call Zhang to the sitting room. In the room, Yu and Bai are chatting with Bai asking if Zhang Xuan has reached the peak of the Dingli realm. Yu says she doesn't know since he was just a client but admits that Bai may be right. Looking for trouble, Bai declares he wants to challenge Zhang later. Master Lu enters the room, visibly bruised, prompting the pair to ask what happened. He dismisses their concerns, assuring them he is fine. He then instructs Cheng to bring a strength measuring pillar. Bai approaches Zhang and asks if he has indeed reached the peak of the Dingli realm, to which Zhang confirms. Without hesitation, Bai proposes a duel. Hearing this, the master observes that the two are at the same level and decides the fight will be an excellent way to assess Zhang's strength. Yu protests, upset that Bai would suggest a fight in the elder's house. The master reassures her, saying it's fine as long as they don't go overboard. The two prepare to fight and Bai asks Zhang to instruct him properly. Bai launches a powerful punch. Zhang decides to test his cultivation, stepping toward Bai. As their fists connect, Zhang realizes his opponent is far too weak for someone supposedly at the peak of the 5-dan. Bai is sent flying across the room, crashing into a wall. Yu is shocked by the professor's level of strength. Zhang asks if Bai is alright. Though clearly injured, Bai insists he's fine, though no one believes him. Zhang expresses relief at hearing this and announces he'll give his full strength this time. Defeated, Bei admits Zhang is much stronger and calls for the fight to stop immediately. Irritated, Zhang remarks that Bei started the fight and now wants to back out. Cheng arrives with the strength measuring stone. He is startled to see the Lord's son injured and slumped against the wall. Assessing the situation, Lu steps in, saying it's enough and that Bei should rest while they test Zhang's strength. Zhang notes that he tested it the day before, achieving only 4 cauldrons, and doesn't see the point of another test. But Master Lu insists. Reluctantly, Zhang prepares to strike the stone. Using only half his strength, he delivers a punch. Once again, the reading shows 4 cauldrons. Everyone is utterly stunned. Yu suggests he look at the stone again, but Zhang dismisses her suggestion, saying it's unnecessary to make such a fuss. Upon closer inspection, he realizes his actual strength is 40-man cauldrons. In disbelief, Zhang claims the stone must be malfunctioning, but the master assures him it's correct and attributes the increase to his earlier breakthrough. The master explains what happened, mentioning the immense strength Zhang demonstrated in his fight with Bai's son. Yu and the Lord's son are baffled by this revelation. Even Zhang is confused by the flood of new information. Lu asks if Zhang has opened 46 acupoints, to which Zhang hesitantly responds, unsure. He explains that he hasn't made significant progress in cultivation, but recently experienced a notable increase in physical strength. Trying to make sense of it, the elder asks if Zhang ate any particularly red fruit in the past few days. Zhang recalls eating a strange fruit at the market earlier that day, which made him feel extremely hot. The master explains that it was a Hongjin pearl fruit, a legendary fruit said to boost physical strength significantly. Feeling sheepish, Zhang admits he only mentioned the fruit as a guess, not knowing it actually existed. The conversation continues inside the house. The master asks where Zhang comes from, and Zhang replies that he is a teacher at the Hongshan Academy. Laughing, Lu says that explains why Zhang is so powerful. He warns Yu and Bai to learn more from the other young man to discipline themselves. Yu takes the comment lightly, while Bai becomes irritated by the comparison. Zhang apologizes for the inconvenience and says it's best for him to leave. Lu offers to reach out to Shen Zhu to help him access books on 6th Dan martial artists. The protagonist thanks him for the help. As he returns, Zhang reflects that the trip was worth it since his physical strength increased significantly. Lost in thought, he notices someone following him. Looking back, he sees a group led by Mo Yang, who is enraged because his scheme was ruined. Mo Yang declares that he won't let Zhang get away with it and will settle the score. Mockingly, Zhang picks his nose and sarcastically asks if that's all Mo Yang has to offer. This only angers Mo Yang further, and he vows to kill Zhang. Unbothered, Zhang remarks that he recently reincarnated and doesn't intend to leave with his mouth shut. Mo Yang orders Zhuang to beat Zhang up. The towering man approaches and asks if Zhang has any last words. Onlookers believe the large man will easily overpower Zhang. Zhuang warns Zhang not to move, saying one punch will be enough. As Zhuang strikes, Zhang grabs his arm with immense strength, causing the giant to scream in pain. Seizing the moment, Zhang decides to unleash his full strength. With a powerful blow, Zhuang is sent flying. Everyone, including Mo Yang, is left speechless and shocked by the scene. Despite this, Mo Yang and his men refuse to give up, determined to kill Zhang. One of the men steps forward, claiming he is in the Pixu realm and far superior to the Dingli realm. Zhang assesses his new opponent calmly. Mo Yang continues to bark orders, insisting Zhang pay for his actions. The fight introduces the eagle dive technique. Nearby, spectators watch the battle unfold. Mo Yang is confident that his henchmen will defeat Zhang with the eagle dive. Amused, Zhang says he's excited to fight someone in the Pixu realm. A powerful strike is launched. Suddenly, the opponent is left gasping in pain, his face turning purple, unable to complete the technique. Seeing his comrade injured, Mo Yang orders all his men to attack Zhang together. 2 of them rush toward Zhang. Zhang taunts them, asking why only 2 came forward. They realize their leader isn't following. Cowardly, Mo Yang claims he has other matters to attend to and tries to flee. Onlookers jeer, saying the old man should be ashamed. Zhang easily defeats the 2 attackers with a single devastating strike. Meanwhile, Mo Yan runs away, muttering that Zhang is a monster. But to his horror, Zhang appears beside him and says he should have waited. With one strike, Zhang knocks Mo Yang to the ground, warning him to stop his scheming immediately. Satisfied, Zhang remarks that Mo Yang should have considered the consequences before trying to kill him. The swindler begs for his life, offering all of his savings to Zhang. Zhang asks to see how much it is and whether it's enough to save his life. Mo Yang hands over a ring, urging Zhang to inspect it. Zhang is puzzled by how so much wealth could fit into the ring. Using his library, he quickly analyzes the ring. He discovers its vast storage space filled with riches likely stolen from countless victims over the years. Mo Yang continues pleading to leave. Zhang agrees to let him go but demands he hand over what he's carrying between his legs. Confused, the swindler wonders what Zhang could mean by that. Zhang tears Mo Yang's robe with his hands, ignoring the man's protests. Holding onto his tattered clothes in embarrassment, Mo Yang mutters that Zhang didn't need to be so rough and could have just asked. Ignoring him, Zhang counts the money, contemplating how much wealth the man had hidden. Frustrated, Mo Yang asks to leave since Zhang now has all his money. Zhang accuses him of being a fraud who pretends to be an evaluator while deceiving people into trusting him. Faced with the accusations, Mo Yang asks how Zhang knows all this and who he really is. Although not surprised that Zhang knows his name, since he's a wanted man, Mo Yang is shocked that Zhang knows about his seduction techniques, which he had kept secret from everyone. Putting the money away, Zhang remarked that it didn't matter how he knew all that, but he knew much more, including the location of the Lifegate acupoint, though he wouldn't kill the man. However, to put an end to his malicious actions, he would ruin his cultivation. He began kicking him, sending him flying. The man crashed into one of the walls. Looking at the scene with disdain, the professor told him he could leave. While gasping for air, Mo Yang realized something was wrong with his cultivation. Shang Bin yelled at his grandfather, kneeling and begging for help. Frustrated, he pointed out that the elder had told him the heaven-shattering lion was obedient. Pointing to the beast, he accused it of ignoring his commands to attack Zhang Xuan and and instead turning on him. The lion was under his grandfather's control reluctantly and could only communicate as equals, not act as per its disposition, ignoring the boy's accusations. Still bound by their contract, the lion was supposed to protect his grandson. Shang wondered why the beast obeyed someone else and attacked him instead. The young man watched the lion silent now, but seemingly obedient before the professor. He wondered who the true master of the beast was. With a cough, the elder nervously said they'd discuss it later. Still frustrated, the boy urged his grandfather to teach Zhang Zhuan a lesson, remove his position, and expel him from the academy. The elder assured him not to worry, promising to handle it. Zhang Zhuan was lucky and had already gained 5 students, so firing a registered teacher without a valid reason wouldn't be easy. His grandson suggested a plan, claiming Liu Yang had been coerced into becoming Zhang's student. He mentioned requesting a will compensation test scheduled for the next day, during which the elder could disqualify Zhang. Concerned, the elder asked if it was true, and Shang confirmed it. If it was, the elder would invite Mo from the teachers' union as a witness. If the test revealed the student didn't want to remain under Zhang's tutelage, the teacher would be disqualified, and his grandson thanked him. Confident in the plan, Shang commented that he looked forward to Zhang's expression when he was dismissed, calling him arrogant. On the day of the test, Zhang Zhuan lamented that despite reading numerous cultivation manuals for 6 Dan martial artists and extracting correct techniques, he couldn't combine them. He had attempted to create a cultivation method, but there were too many flaws, rendering them useless. Pushing open the door to enter, he thought about needing more books. Inside the hall, 5 students were waiting for him, and he was startled to see them. They all greeted him enthusiastically. Returning the greeting, the professor wondered why they were so energetic and cheerful. He called Zhao Ya and handed her herbs to grind and mix with water, explaining they would help her recover in 3 days. Opening the box, she discovered it was the mother frozen sun herb. With several books in hand, Zhang said he had written cultivation techniques tailored to each of the students' physiques, which they could use to train. The students picked up the books and began reading about the techniques, marveling that they had never seen anything like them and questioning if the professor had written them alone. Zhao Ye remarked that the White Jade Maiden technique was created by a martial artist from her family's kingdom, but the technique in the book was superior. Smiling, the professor said he had finished them the previous night and couldn't wait to hand them over. Since they didn't have names, he told them they could name the techniques themselves. Everyone was stunned by the information. Zhao Ye asked if they could really name the cultivation techniques whatever they wanted, and Zhang confirmed. One student marveled at how writing a single technique was difficult, yet Zhang had written 5 and let them choose names. Another thought the professor must have stayed up late creating these techniques, unlike any other teacher at the Hongshan Academy. A third student admired the professor's talent and generosity. Moved, all the students knelt and expressed their gratitude, leaving Zhang Zhuan startled. Zhao Ya declared they wouldn't share the secret techniques with anyone else and vowed punishment for anyone who leaked them. Relieved, Zhang Zhuan thought about how the techniques were randomly generated by the Library of Heaven's Path and how trouble would arise if anyone discovered that. Meanwhile, Shen Biru paced nervously, pondering her next steps and whether appearing would cause misunderstandings. She only wanted to expose him. Determined, she decided she needed to uncover the truth and headed to the academy's entrance, where she encountered someone. The man was debating whether to enter or not, thinking that going in might anger Shen, but staying outside could make her feel wronged and hurt. The woman approaches the man, asking for his name. Rudely, he responds that he's just a passerby and warns her not to meddle in his business or she might get hurt. Irritated, Shen Biru wonders if the man was sent by Shang Bin to teach Zhang Zhuan a lesson, recalling how the young man threatened the professor after being humiliated by him. She asks the man if he knows the penalty for attacking a teacher from the academy, but he doesn't understand what she means. Remembering Shang Bin's jealousy over Zhang Zhuan's interest in her, the man asks if her name is Shen Biru. She confirms it and warns him to leave or face consequences, but the man accuses her of making excuses and questions if she's there to cause him trouble. Determined to protect Zhang Zhuan from further harm, even while injured, Shen Biru decides to take action and charges at the man. The man also moves to confront her, blocking one of her kicks with his arm. Elsewhere, a student asks Shang Bin about the elder's response. Shang reassures him, saying that as long as Liu Yang became Zhang Zhuan's student against his will, the professor's fate is sealed. He explains that once they both enter the Tower of Will, Zhang Zhuan will lose everything and be expelled from the academy. Grinning, the student expresses excitement, adding that if Shen Biru sees his capabilities, she'll fall madly in love with him. Shang Bin smugly thinks that Shen must have been deceived by Zhang's flattery, which is why she went to dinner with him. Once Zhang is expelled, he believes her heart will be his. The student wishes Shang success in his efforts. Laughing, Shang fantasizes about finally winning Shen's affection, while the student congratulates him until noticing something unusual. Pointing ahead, the student calls Shang's attention to Shen Biru fighting Yao Han. The student wonders if Shen found out about the earlier fight and is now avenging him. Shang is surprised, but the student insists there could be no other reason, believing Shen's actions prove she's in love with him. Clutching his chest in surprise and then anger, Shang decides he can't let her get hurt for his sake. He rushes toward them to help, determined to defend her. Yao Han notices Shang approaching and assumes the two are together. Seeing Shang, Shen Biru questions what schemes he might be planning. Shang attempts a kick to intervene, but both Shen and Yao Han step back to avoid it. Yao Han thinks Shang's actions are suspicious, wondering if he was hiding and waiting for Shen to show up so he could act like a hero to impress her. Before Shang can land another move, Yao Han grabs him and starts slapping and punching him. Concerned, the student asks Shen if she plans to help, but she observes the fight and remarks that it looks too real to be staged. Turning to Shang's student, she asks if he wants her assistance. Desperate, the student pleads for her help, fearing his master might die if left unaided. Reluctantly, Shen agrees to intervene, intending to put an end to what she suspects is a charade. Yao Han, now realizing his injuries and the risk of facing both of them, decides it's time to leave. He throws Shang toward the group, vowing to make them pay tenfold for what happened. As Yao Han retreats, he leaves the injured Shang behind, much to Shen's confusion. Irritated, Shen remarks that the scene looked like a pathetic act, while the student calls out worriedly for his master. The academy doors open and Zhang Zuan steps out, demanding to know what chaos is happening in front of his classroom. Shang Bin attempts to threaten Zhang but struggles to speak due to his swollen mouth. His student explains that he filed a complaint with the academy accusing Zhang of coercing Liu Yang into becoming his student. As a result, the academy has arranged a test, and they must go immediately. Zhang appears puzzled about the nature of the test. On behalf of the academy's administrative office, Shang's student demands Zhang attend the test, warning that failure to comply will result in expulsion for violating the rules. Concerned, Shenbiru doesn't understand how Zhang remains so confident when it's clear these two are scheming against him. She urges him not to go. With determination, Zhang declares that he will attend, shocking everyone present. Turning, he calls for Liu Yang. Reluctant at first, Liu Yang now seems inclined to trust Zhang and declares that he's ready to do whatever his teacher asks. The young man told Shang not to worry as he had recruited the student himself and preferred certainty over doubt. Shang agreed it was a good move. The woman questioned how the professor could agree to this and suggested he should have delayed the test, but he replied that everything was fine. Yang left the school, summoned to the test. Knowing that Shang's grandfather was the head of the Office of Affairs yet agreeing to the test, Shenbiru criticized Zhang Zuan, saying he was bringing misfortune upon himself. However, since it all started because of her, she couldn't just stand by and watch, so she decided to follow and see what would happen. At the Will Comprehension Tower of the Hongshan Academy, the director of the Office of Affairs apologized to Elder Mo for the issue. Mo replied that if it were true the professor forced a student to follow him, he would report it to the teachers union and revoke his license. During the last teacher qualification assessment, Zhang scored a 0 and received an ultimatum. He would be fired if he didn't recruit any students. If Kaoxiang hadn't reported the issue to the academy and requested the test, the director wouldn't have known. The elder noted that the test might sever relationships between professors, but was the only way to remove rotten apples from the basket, so the director shouldn't blame himself. The doors opened and everyone entered the room. Shang's grandfather, alarmed, asked what had happened. Shang explained it was an accident. He handed the young man some pills to heal his wounds while another teacher pleaded with Elder Mo for justice. He claimed Zhang Zhuan broke the rules of fair competition, forcing Liu Yang to become his student. He was there to conduct the test for the student's sake. The mentioned student appeared confused by what was happening. Shocked, Zhang Zhuan insisted that Liu Yang had chosen him voluntarily and pointed out that he hadn't forced anyone to follow him. Kaoxiang wondered why Zhang was so nervous. Turning to the student, Zhang blinked, signaling him, and asked him to confirm he hadn't been coerced. The student understood it was a setup. Nervously, Liu Yang stammered that the professor had never forced him, and that he became his student of his own accord. Elder Mo, noticing the student's unease, suggested Zhang give up the student and leave him to his colleague, thereby avoiding the test. But the other teachers protested loudly. Shang argued that the academy had already approved the test, and canceling it now would make the academy's rules a joke. Kaoxiang agreed, stating they only wanted the student to have the freedom to choose his teacher without coercion. The elder decided that since everyone agreed to the test, it would proceed to clarify things. Liu Yang would take the test, and afterward, the teacher he chose would be the winner. After the test, the losing side would be expelled from the academy. The director asked Zhang if he had any objections. Zhang replied that he held no grudge against Kao, but felt expulsion was too harsh. He proposed that instead of expulsion, the loser should be disqualified and receive 100 strikes from the immortal subjugating rod. Everyone in the room was stunned, wondering if the punishment was really lighter since Zhang had suggested it himself. Mo pondered that even if expelled, a teacher could still teach elsewhere, but losing his position was entirely different. It would cost him his career and make him a laughingstock wherever he went. Kao wondered if Zhang was digging his own grave since the rod was a specially forged weapon strong enough to flay skin and break bones. Shang thought this was a trap set by the other professors, but instead of refusing the test, Zhang had raised the stakes. He wondered if Zhang had gone mad. With a smile, Zhang said the other side had requested this, then turned to the elder, saying he found the suggestion very reasonable and hoped it would be approved. Liu Yang thought his teacher pretended to be nervous to lower their guard, only to suggest a harsher punishment. He concluded Zhang was a natural schemer. With the punishment decided, the test began. It involved a crystal ball made from a questioning stone. Professors and students placed their hands on the ball, one pair at a time, and the ball would reflect the level of trust. The winner would be the pair with the highest score. The elder asked if anyone had questions, and they all responded negatively. Kao thought to himself that Liu Yang was among the top 100 students, while Zhang had scored 0 in the evaluation. There was no way Liu Yang would want to remain Zhang's student after the test, leading to his expulsion. Mo stated that since Zhang proposed the test, he should go first and called the student forward. Both placed their hands on the crystal ball and it began to glow. The will questioning stone induces a hypnotic trance. Once someone comes into contact with it, they are drawn into an illusion. Everything within comes from the deepest parts of one's heart, free from any external interference. If a student was coerced into joining a teacher, their lack of trust would manifest as resentment. The test detects the innermost thoughts of the student with precision. The level of trust is reflected numerically with a maximum score of 100. Every 10 points represent a level of trust, and scores typically hover around 30. Shen remarked that the two professors were in completely different leagues and would never have crossed paths if not for her. She then urged Zhang to leave the academy and never return. Hearing this, Shang questioned whether it was too late to back out. The will comprehension test had already started, and it was impossible to withdraw now. Shang thought Zhang would soon realize how foolish his decision was. Smirking, the professor asked Shang how he could be so sure of victory. He pointed out that Kao had personally recruited Liu Yang and spent half a month with him, assuming his trust points would exceed 20. Zhang, he assumed, would score much lower. Hongshan Academy was the most prestigious institution in the kingdom. If news spread that his students scored low trust points, Zhang would be ridiculed throughout the realm. Despite everything, Zhang remained calm, prompting Shen to wonder how he could be so composed. The director proposed a wager to Elder Mo, guessing how many points each would achieve. Mo stated that if Liu Yang trusted one teacher, his score would be high, but if coerced, it would drop below 0. In such a case, Mo assured he would report Zhang to the teachers' union and ensure his disqualification. The results began to appear. Cao anticipated taking Liu Yang as his student after the test, leading to Zhang's expulsion. With Shang Bin's support, Kao's career at the academy would flourish. The crystal ball glowed, revealing a score of 10 above Kao and Liu Yang. Cao was stunned, wondering how such a low score was possible when he had personally recruited the student and spent almost a month with him. Zhang asked Liu Yang if this was the level of trust he had in him. Nervously, Liu Yang questioned what had gone wrong. The director was furious, thinking Cao had the audacity to request a test with such a low score. He had expected at least 20 points, but this was humiliating. Turning to Zhang, Kao dismissed the 10 points, insisting that if Zhang's score was lower, he would still lose. Confidently, Zhang stepped up to the crystal ball, urging them to get it over with. Both placed their hands on the ball, and the results appeared almost instantly. Everyone was shocked, with the director remarking how unusually fast the results came in. Cao, Shang, and Shen were stunned by what they saw. A trust score of 64 appeared above Zhang and Liu Yang. It was almost equivalent to the trust a child places in a parent. Everyone was left speechless, while Kao and Shang were in utter disbelief. Elder Mo, astonished, remarked that it was rare for a one-star teacher to achieve such a score. Shen was amazed, thinking that even the veteran star teachers of the academy rarely garnered such high trust points. Turning to the elders, Zhang asked if this meant he had won. Kamuxiang, still stunned, argued that something must be wrong with the will-questioning stone. He refused to accept the result. Shang Bin agreed, saying it was impossible for Liu Yang to trust Zhang that much. If it were true, even top teachers like Luke Sun and Wan wouldn't compare to him. Mo observed Liu Yang's eyes clear and bright with genuine admiration. It couldn't be fabricated. The trust was real. The elder stated that the stone probed the deepest parts of the heart and had never malfunctioned. He warned the others to stop talking nonsense or face expulsion. With the victory secured, Zhang declared it was time to honor the agreement. He turned to Kao, reminding him to fulfill the terms of the bet. The director, smiling, said Zhang had already won and suggested letting the matter rest. Zhang remarked that if he had lost, they certainly wouldn't be saying the same thing. The man then told Zhang to behave, saying he was just a junior teacher who got lucky because his students' trust level had risen, but that was all. Turning to the elder, he insinuated that Zhang must have used some trick to increase the students' trust, citing another student who had suffered a chi deviation under his guidance. Curious, Zhang asked about this chi deviation. Kao claimed that due to such incidents, all of Zhang's students had abandoned him, and seeing how much Liu Yang trusted him now, he suspected the use of special methods to deceive him. Otherwise, someone who had scored 0 in the teacher qualification evaluation couldn't have gained 60 trust points in just 2 days. The elder seemed thoughtful, analyzing the situation. The director remarked that a teacher must earn a student's trust primarily by imparting knowledge about cultivation. Without trust, students could be missold, leading to disastrous consequences. Zhang responded that he wasn't there to discuss methods but to participate in the comprehension test, which he had won. He asked if they intended to break their promise. Elder Shang commented that disqualifying a teacher over a trivial bet was ridiculous. His grandson agreed, adding that Cao Xiang was a respected teacher at the academy and dismissing him would be an overreaction. Irritated, Shenbiru asked if Shang would have forgiven Zhang if he had lost. The young man retorted that Zhang was incomparable to him. He couldn't nurture a martial artist at the 2-dan level or attract numerous students to join the academy. Their argument was interrupted by the announcement that Patriarch Wang Hong had arrived to see the elder. The director instructed them to let him in. Wang Hong, head of one of the 4 major families, was visiting, a rare honor. He decided he would deal with Zhang later. Shang wondered why such an influential figure was visiting, noting that Wang Hong was listed among the kingdom's top 10 potential masters. The elder explained it was likely about Wang Tao, Wang Hong's eldest son and heir, who Shang had trained successfully. He presumed Wang Hong had come to express gratitude. Zhang Zhuan asked if Wang Tao was Shang's student, and Shen confirmed, advising Zhang to find a way out quickly. She pointed out that the elder seemed to side against him, and the Wang family wielded immense power and influence. Staying at the academy would only invite trouble for Zhang. Smiling, Zhang said he would wait and see. Shen was incredulous, thinking she was trying to help, but Zhang didn't seem to care at all. Wang Hong entered and greeted Elder Shang warmly. The elder expressed his honor and asked how he could assist. Grasping the elder's hands, Wang Hong explained that he was there regarding his daughter, Wang Ying. He mentioned that her teacher was Zhang Zhuan and that he wished to meet him. The elder pointed to Zhang, indicating that he was the teacher. Cao and Shang were thrilled, thinking Zhang would finally get what he deserved for deceiving the girl. His bad luck had arrived. Wang Hong approached Zhang, leaving everyone tense. To everyone's shock, Wang Hong knelt before Zhang, declaring a pleasure to meet him. The director was stunned, realizing Zhang wouldn't be punished. Everyone else was equally shocked, wondering why Wang Hong knelt instead of berating or striking Zhang. Zhang helped him up, asking why he was doing this. Wang Hong explained that Zhang had healed his daughter's legs and imparted profound knowledge to her. He had come to personally express his gratitude. Smiling, Zhang modestly replied that it was nothing. She was his student, and it was his duty to help her. Hearing this, Elder Mo appeared pleased, commenting that such acts reflected Zhang's noble spirit, which undoubtedly contributed to Liu Yang's trust. Wang Hong added that visiting personally wasn't necessary even though Zhang was his daughter's teacher, which astonished the elder. The patriarch remarked that Elder Mo was a true sage but noted he also had a favorite ask of Shang Chen. The director expressed his willingness to help, and Wang Hong explained that his son had been studying under Shang. He admitted he had never personally thanked Shang for his efforts and wished to offer a small gift. Shang humbly stated that he was just doing his job. Nervously, Shang thought he couldn't accept any gifts with Elder Mo present. Smiling, Wang Hong praised Shang's morality but mentioned that his son's lessons were no longer aligned with his cultivation needs, so he wanted to transfer him to another class. Shang was shocked as his student had been progressing well and had no reason to leave. The patriarch waited for his agreement, and Shang felt the matter should have been discussed privately, not in front of everyone. Reluctantly, he agreed. The departure of a student reflected poorly on a teacher's abilities. It was akin to a slap in the face. He had foolishly thought the patriarch was there to request something of him, only to find out it was his own student who wanted to leave. The news would spread, and he feared it would cost him his position as director of the academic affairs office. The patriarch thanked him for his understanding and, addressing the crowd, asked Wang Tao which teacher he preferred moving forward. Turning to Zhang Zhuan, the patriarch asked if he was willing to accept his son as a student. Everyone was stunned and astonished at the proposal. The director coughed up blood, realizing his student wanted to leave his class to join a teacher who had scored 0 in the qualification evaluation. The other professors began murmuring among themselves. Apologetically, Zhang refused the offer. The crowd fell silent in disbelief as Wang Tao was a prodigy. Shen Beiru and Liu Yang were equally shocked, wondering if Zhang was serious about turning down such an opportunity. Shang, still recovering from his humiliation, felt utterly disgraced. His student preferred Zhang, yet Zhang had refused. Elder Mo, impressed, admitted he had underestimated Zhang and that the teacher was far more capable than he had thought. The patriarch, surprised, asked again, only to hear another no. He began to wonder if his son had failed to mention something significant. The patriarch explained that his son could be impulsive and had likely failed to recognize Zhang's talent, asking Zhang not to take it personally. Cao interrupted, suggesting Zhang had refused not because of any grudge but because he was a martial artist at the Zhenqi realm, while Wang Tao was at the Peigu realm, making him too weak to teach a more advanced student. Shang agreed, mocking the idea of Zhang being capable of mentoring such a student. The director advised Zhang to reconsider, noting that while it was acceptable for Wang Tao to leave his class, choosing a weaker teacher would only hinder his cultivation journey. The patriarch mentioned his daughter's praise for Zhang's teaching methods, but admitted he didn't know Zhang's exact cultivation level. One professor chimed in, accusing Zhang of being a fraud and stating that it was easy for a 3-dan martial artist to fool newcomers but impossible to deceive more experienced students. Shang supported the claim, saying Zhang hadn't even advanced to the 4-dan realm and couldn't possibly guide a Peigu realm student. The patriarch countered, saying his son had witnessed Zhang blocking a powerful strike with just 2 fingers, something no Zhenqi realm martial artist could achieve. The professors mocked the claim, suggesting it was an exaggeration, and argued that someone at the peak of the Peigu realm had strength exceeding 700 kilograms. They started discussing Zhang's evaluation scores and Wang Tao's abilities, but were interrupted by Liu Yang, who confirmed seeing Zhang's feat himself. The director dismissed Liu Yang's claims, stating that as a cultivation master, he couldn't believe such a story. Just as he was about to continue, a servant arrived announcing someone was there to see Zhang Zhuan. When asked, the servant replied that it was the young Lord Bai's son, Summagen and Wang. The director, startled, yelled for the servant to let him in immediately, and the man hurried off. Elder Mo began questioning why so many people were seeking Zhang, suspecting a hidden connection between them. Shen wondered how Zhang was acquainted with someone of Bai's son's status, given their social disparity. The young lord entered, and everyone greeted him respectfully. He acknowledged Zhang with a smile, and Zhang asked why he was there. Bai's son approached, stating he would soon finish his current duties and wanted to begin learning under Zhang as soon as possible. The entire room was abuzz, with everyone questioning how the young lord was so familiar with Zhang and why he treated him so deferentially. Shang, frustrated, accused Zhang of rudeness, claiming he was unfit to be a teacher and lacked proper manners. Turning to Bai's son, he apologized on Zhang's behalf, calling him weak, clumsy, and utterly inappropriate as a mentor. Upon hearing all that, the young lord turned to Shang, cursing and asking who he thought he was. He declared that Zhang Xuan could be considered a senior akin to a grandfather in terms of seniority, and asked if Shang wanted to die for disrespecting him. This left the director speechless, unable to form a response. The young lord continued, explaining that Lord Zhen and Wang, his father, shared the same seniority as the kingdom's majesty. If Zhang was a grandfather in seniority, then he was also senior to the majesty himself. The professors were shocked, questioning what was happening. Mo wondered who Zhang Zhuan truly was and why the young master treated him with such reverence. Bai's son stated that Zhang was not only a master of painting and calligraphy, but also 3 times stronger than himself. Hearing this, Zhang Zhuan felt staying low-key would now be impossible. The director, feeling threatened, asked Shang if he wanted to die for calling Zhang rude and criticizing his methods. Shang apologized profusely. The young lord commented that it was fortunate Zhang hadn't made a move earlier. If he had, Shang would not have survived. This statement left everyone wondering what Bai's son truly meant. Zhang internally lamented, thinking he wanted to hide his strength for a grand reveal. But it seemed that option was gone now. The patriarch changed his stance, requesting Zhang accept his son as a student. Bai's son, visibly irritated, threatened Zhang, stating he also wanted to be his student and challenging him to a fight, putting Zhang in an awkward position. With seriousness, Zhang Zhuan agreed to take Wang Tao into his class and promised to consider Bai's son if Wang performed well. This announcement further shocked the director. Smiling, the young lord offered his assistance in exchange for Zhang, teaching him painting and calligraphy. Turning to Shang, Zhang reminded him that the comprehension test was over and it was time to fulfill their agreement. Cao protested, saying Zhang was taking things too far. Losing the test meant taking the 100 lashes, but he was not qualified to disqualify him. Zhang asked Mo for confirmation, and the elder affirmed that teacher qualifications could only be revoked by the union and only if the teacher had made significant errors. Zhang acknowledged this but pointed out that it wasn't mentioned during the bet. Cao admitted he didn't expect to lose. The only way to revoke a qualification now was if a notable teacher or tutor personally confirmed his incompetence, but such individuals wouldn't care about his simple wager. At that moment, another servant arrived, announcing that a girl named Huang Yu was there to see Zhang Zhuan. Bai's son, surprised, asked if Yu was really there too. Mo instructed the servant to let her in, and Huang Yu soon entered. The elder greeted her warmly, and she returned the gesture, bowing to Zhang as well. Huang Yu was the daughter of President Huang of the Teachers Union and a genius who became a tutor in her teens. Sweating nervously, the director muttered to himself that it seemed Zhang had summoned the devil, as everyone arriving was there to counter the accusations against him. The other professors, equally nervous, couldn't understand why so many people respected Zhang, considering his 0 score in the qualification exam. Cao Xiang, trembling, asked if she was really a tutor, and she confirmed, stating that Mr. Liu had selected her for the role. Smiling, Zhang Zhuan commented that her position was indeed impressive. Huang Yu turned to Elder Mo, stating that Cao had exploited the test for personal vendettas and accusing his colleague unjustly. She recommended revoking his qualification immediately. The accusation sent Cao sprawling to the floor in despair. He thought about how much effort he had put into earning his qualification. Losing it would ruin his reputation, and no one would ever hire him again. Cao clenched his fists against the ground, yelling that Zhang Xuan had not truly won. He accused Zhang of scoring 0 in the qualification exam and causing a student to suffer a Zhenqi deviation, asserting that Zhang should be disqualified instead. Zhang, unfazed, scratched his nose indifferently, replying that it didn't matter, he would still go first. Humiliated and defeated, Cao Xiang was left utterly stunned. Shang Bin, enraged, says Zhang Xuan shouldn't push things so far and warns that if Cao Xiang is disqualified because of him, Zhang will be next. The director acknowledges what Miss Huang and Elder Mo have said, admitting there are doubts about Zhang Xuan's qualifications as a teacher. Elder Mo states that if the accusations are true, the union must conduct a new inspection. Zhang feels underestimated, recognizing that his opponents are skilled at manipulating the rules. He thinks that while good people often face injustices, this is his opportunity to prove himself. If the academy doesn't escalate this to the union, he will remain safe and continue teaching. But if they do, he risks being disqualified and ending up like Stao Xiang. Deciding he can no longer hide his strength, Zhang begins to confess. However, Shen Biru interrupts, saying she finally understands everything and that he doesn't need to defend himself. Confused, Zhang looks at her in surprise. Shen states that Shang Bin claims Zhang scored 0 in the qualification exam. Yet when she and Mo questioned him about the exam's topics, he answered everything correctly. Bai Shun adds that Zhang's wisdom was confirmed at Master Lu's estate, where his punching strength reached 49 cauldrons. Shen nods in agreement. Shen says it doesn't make sense for someone with such power to score 0 on a simple exam. Wine points out that the Academy's exams are typically conducted by the Office of Academic Affairs, but no one truly knows how they're graded. Pointing at the director, Shen accuses his office of falsifying the results. Elder Mo observes Zhang's calm demeanor throughout the accusations, concluding he's a magnanimous and altruistic teacher who lives harmoniously with the world. The three grow angrier at the director, who appears increasingly confused. Zhang considers explaining the inaccuracy of his results, but didn't expect the accusations to escalate to this level. Shang demands to know why he is being blamed, insisting that as the head of academic affairs, he had no reason to frame a junior teacher. Mo interjects, suggesting Shang's grandson aspired to become a star teacher, but Zhang's superior abilities pose a threat. To protect his grandson's ambitions, Shang attempted to remove Zhang. Elder Mo declares he finally sees the truth, calling Shang manipulative. Liu Yang, Bai's son, and Huang Yu step forward as witnesses, accusing the Academy of wrongdoing and supporting Zhang. Shang, bewildered, denies knowing about Zhang's skills and claims never to have met him before. Turning to Zhang, Shang urges him to speak up and stop playing the victim. Grinding his teeth so hard his mouth bleeds, Shang shouts Zhang's name in frustration. Mo questions how Shang has the nerve to feign innocence. Shen questions how someone so corrupt became the director, while the patriarch suggests revoking his teaching qualifications. Shang Bin is left in shock. Looking at Shang's bleeding mouth, Elder Mo remarks that his anger must have been unbearable. But now, having let out, he should feel relief. With renewed determination, Shang shifts the focus to the student who suffered a Zhenqi deviation, demanding Zhang explain himself. Realizing he cannot change what his predecessor did, Zhang begins to respond but stops mid-sentence. Shang seizes the opportunity, instructing a servant to summon Zhao Yanfeng from Lu Xun's class to testify. Lu Xun is a star teacher and the Academy's most popular instructor. Mo questions why such a prestigious teacher would accept a student who suffered a Zhenqi deviation. According to Zhang's predecessor's memories, Zhao Yanfeng stopped attending class after the incident out of shame, causing his former teacher to abandon him. The director recalls that with months of guidance and recovery under Lu Xun, Zhao overcame his issues and reached the peak of the Juxi realm, poised for further advancement. Wang commends Lu Xun for rehabilitating a student who had suffered a Zhenqi deviation. Zhao Yanfeng arrives at the tower and introduces himself. The director points to Zhang, asking if Zhao recognizes him. Zhao confirms Zhang as his former teacher. The director asks about the Zhenqi deviation, and Zhao explains that fortunately, Lu Xun saved him. otherwise he would have been crippled. The director uses this as evidence, declaring that the victim of Zhang's negligence is standing before them. Elder Mo agrees that an investigation must continue, as causing a Zhengqi deviation is grounds for revoking teaching qualifications. The director turns to Zhang, stating it's time for him to defend himself, as his future depends on whether Zhao accepts his apology. Zhang steps forward, calmly admits his mistake, and takes responsibility. In response, Zhang shocks everyone by admitting he intentionally caused the Zhengqi deviation. Gasps echo through the hall. Shenbiru immediately condemns his actions, stating he endangered his student and questioning Elder Mo about his qualification to teach. The room erupts in judgment. Yanfeng, furious, demands to know why Zhang would deliberately teach him incorrectly, assuming malicious intent. Zhang sighs and calmly asks if anyone in the room truly understands his actions. When no one offers an answer, he begins to explain. He reveals that Zhao Yanfeng was born with congenital blocked meridians, a rare condition where Zhengqi cannot flow properly through the body. Miss Huang remarks that such a condition is typically seen as a defect, as it prevents the individual from ever reaching the Danshan realm. Elder Mo listens intently, trying to comprehend the situation. Zhao, in disbelief, denies the possibility, claiming he never experienced any noticeable resistance during cultivation. Zhang counters, asking if Zhao ever felt shortness of breath or intense pain, as though his body was being torn apart when collecting Zhengqi. Shocked, Zhao confirms these symptoms and that Zhang knew about them. The entire hall falls silent. The director challenges Zhang's reasoning, questioning what congenital blocked meridians have to do with causing Zhengqi deviation. Zhang explains that Zhengqi deviation can be leveraged as a control technique to destroy the blockages in the meridians, thereby resolving the underlying issue. Miss Huang is astonished, stating that it's unheard of to use Zhengqi deviation as a method to unblock meridians. Elder Mo, wide-eyed, declares that if Zhang's method is true, it could revolutionize the entire cultivation world. Zhang asks Zhao if, since the Zhengqi deviation, he has experienced the symptoms of blocked meridians. Zhao admits he hasn't and always believed his improvements were due to Lu Xun's teachings. Zhang calmly explains that during Zhengqi deviation, the Zhengqi becomes wildly powerful, strong enough to break through the blockages provided proper measures are taken afterward to stabilize the body. He laments that Zhao left without understanding this and treated him as an enemy instead of recognizing the life-changing help he provided. Shang retorted that it was impossible, and even if it were true, the professor should have explained it beforehand, as Zhao Yanfeng definitely wouldn't have left if he knew. The professor explained that Zhengqi deviation gets its name because it causes pain and loss of control. If he had revealed the plan earlier, Yanfeng would have been too scared to take the risk. Zhang stated that it didn't matter whether the director believed him or not. He had examined the student's body and confirmed that Yanfeng had reached the Juxi realm and was on the brink of advancing. He then asked how long it would normally take for such progress. Yanfeng replied that Lu Laoshi had said it would take about 6 months of calm cultivation to reach the Danshan realm. The patriarch noted that Yanfeng's talent was mediocre and that advancing in 6 months with Lu Xun's guidance was already a significant achievement. Miss Huang agreed. Zhang dismissed their assessment, calling it nonsense. He revealed that he could help Yanfeng make the advancement within an hour. Both the patriarch and Miss Huang were stunned, while Elder Mo argued that achieving such progress in 6 months was already difficult. How could the professor claim to do it in just 1 hour? The director scoffed, saying cultivation wasn't as simple as eating or drinking. It required step-by-step effort, and achieving it in an hour was out of the question. Zhang turned to the director, asking if he truly didn't trust him. Yanfeng, recalling how Zhang had helped him unlock his meridians, began to believe it was possible. Zhang placed a reassuring hand on Yanfeng's shoulder, telling him he didn't blame him for doubting, but if he missed this opportunity, he'd have to wait another 6 months. Yanfeng hesitated but ultimately said he was willing to try. Pleased, Zhang assured him he wouldn't regret it. He instructed Yanfeng to sit cross-legged and clear his mind, explaining that he would use silver needles to stimulate the acupoints and increase Zhengqi concentration. Following Zhang's directions, Yanfeng sat and prepared himself. Zhang then took out a silver needle and carefully placed it on Yanfeng's head. With intense focus, Yanfeng executed the steps under Zhang's guidance, successfully advancing to the initial stage of the Danshan realm. Awestruck, Yanfeng stared at his hands, marveling at the change, wondering how it was possible in such a short time. Everyone in the room was equally astonished. Elder Mo questioned whether he had seen correctly, marveling how Zhang had seemingly unlocked such progress with a simple needle. Yanfeng, overwhelmed with gratitude, bowed deeply to Zhang, apologizing for ever doubting him. He said that if allowed, he would return to Zhang's class immediately. The patriarch, impressed, reflected on his own struggles to reach the Danshan realm and wished he had had Zhang Laoshi as his teacher back then. Desperate, Wang begged Zhang to accept his son as a student despite his average talent. Bai's son called Wang shameless and urged Zhang to ignore him, suggesting instead that Zhang accept him as a student. He declared that if he wasn't worthy, he would relinquish his title. Confused by the chaos, Zhang promised to discuss the matter later. Turning to Yanfeng, Zhang asked if he still believed the Zhengqi deviation was caused by his incompetence. Yanfeng admitted he was wrong, acknowledging that Zhang had been trying to help. He apologized and asked for forgiveness. Zhang then addressed Elder Shang, asking if he had anything else to say. Shang, at a loss, realized he couldn't refute Zhang's explanation. Even Yanfeng now believed the Zhengqi deviation had been for his benefit. Elder Mo intervened, telling the director to remain calm. He announced that Cao Xiang had slandered his colleague and demonstrated poor morality. His qualification as a teacher would be revoked, and he would face 100 lashes. Shang Bin would be suspended pending further investigation. As for Shang Chen, he would be stripped of his positions as elder and director of the Academic Affairs Office, with the case being referred to the union for additional punishment. Shang Chen, realizing his career was over, fell to his knees in despair. Elder Mo apologized for the trouble, blaming the union for failing to properly vet its teachers. Zhang reassured him that it was fine, as 1 or 2 bad apples were to be expected. Elder Mo vowed to address the issues upon returning to the union and ensure fair results. As everyone exited the tower, Bai's son approached Zhang, asking him to teach him painting and calligraphy. Thus, the three who were punished remained desolate in the tower. If not for Mr. Wang, Bai's son, and Huang Yu arriving just in time, it would have cost him greatly. He felt even with the previous owner of his body and could finally relax. Both students were now following him, and he knew he had to become a remarkable teacher to establish a foundation in this world. His first goal was to become a tutor. Turning to Miss Huang, he asked how one could become a tutor. She explained that no evaluation was required, only luck. As long as a notable teacher hired someone, they could become a tutor. He then asked why she opened a bookstore despite being a tutor. She replied that she needed more knowledge to be convincing. That's why she followed Mr. Liu's recommendation to open a small bookstore where many people gathered. Zhang Xuan asked how the man evaluated them and what they wanted from him. Bag's son explained that they sought Mo Xuan's painting, a valued piece wrapped in an intricate puzzle for them to solve. The professor wondered why they wanted the painting when they knew nothing about art or calligraphy. The girl mentioned that despite their lack of knowledge, they wanted the painting as a prize because they liked it. Whoever passed the evaluation would win it, and the evaluation involved calligraphy and painting. Both said Zhang knew about these subjects and could identify problems with just a glance, urging him to teach them. He indeed knew, thanks to the Library of Heaven's Path, but without actual expertise, he didn't know how to teach them. At Lu Xun's class in the Hongshan Academy, one man remarked on Lu Xun's growing fame, noting that many sought his instruction even outside the academy. All the students were trying their hardest to get into his class. Lu Xun replied that he was doing his best to train them. Elder Hong commented that the quality of students determined their caliber. Out of 100 students, 70 had been accepted into the class, which Lu Xun said was an honor. Elder Hong then asked what had brought him there, as he was a busy man. The elder explained that he needed Lu Xun's help. Knowing his father and him since childhood, he trusted his integrity and sought assistance in an investigation. Lu Xun asked him not to mention his father, calling him a killjoy, and inquired about the person in question. The elder named Zhang Zhuan. Lu Laoshi asked if he meant the teacher who caused his students Zenki deviation and scored 0 on the evaluation. The elder confirmed it, adding that Zhang had caused chaos in his restaurant, having its revenue. If not for concerns about his identity, he would have beaten him up already. Lu Xun dismissed Zhang as a trash teacher destined to be dismissed soon and asked if there had been any disagreement. Hong mentioned that Zhang had been notified by the Academic Affairs Office that he would be expelled if he didn't secure any students this semester. Lu Xun suggested taking Zhang's students, and the elder agreed, stating that as the Academy's star teacher, only he could do so. Expelling a teacher with students was difficult. Zhang's lack of students would make it straightforward. Lu Xun considered it, and the elder reminded him of Yanfeng's incident, stating that such things would happen again. The teacher agreed, deciding to spread the word that he intended to recruit Zhang's students. Hong was pleased and planned to host a banquet for Lu Xun at the restaurant later. Meanwhile, Wang Yan entered Lu Xun's classroom. Lu Xun asked if there was an issue, while Elder Hong recognized him as the grandson of the Wang family's second elder. Reluctant and hesitant, Yan stammered as he spoke. Lu Xun inquired if there were any cultivation problems. The elder flattered Lu Xun, praising his knowledge and calling him the Academy's best teacher, assuring that any issue could be resolved with his help. Kneeling respectfully, Yan confessed that he wished to leave Lu Xun's class and sought his permission. Stunned, Lu Xun wondered why someone would want to leave when so many fought to join his class. He asked if Yan faced a problem he couldn't reveal or if he had been threatened. Yan responded that it was his decision and that Mr. Wang approved. Lu Xun, shocked by Wang's agreement, warned Yan that leaving his class would mean no other teacher at the academy would accept him. Yan replied firmly that, if allowed to leave, he intended to join Zhang Zhuan's class and repeated his request for permission. In utter disbelief, Lu Xun questioned if his student truly wanted to leave his class to join Zhang Zhuan's. Hong, also in shock, wonders if Xuan isn't the worst teacher at the academy and questions why a student would want to join his class. The professor asked the young man if he is aware that his peer caused a student to suffer a Zhenki deviation and questions again why he would want to join his class. At that moment, Zhao Yanfeng arrives, calling out to him. The professor remarks on his timely arrival, stating that Wang Yan wants to leave his class to join Zhang's class as an observer. He asks Yanfeng to explain to the young man what he went through as Zhang's student and to help him realize his decision is abrupt and wrong. At that very moment, Yanfeng kneels before Lu and declares that, like Yan, he also wishes to leave his class to join another. Completely bewildered, Lu asks if the young man truly wants to leave and whether he should hate Zhang for causing him to suffer a Zhenki deviation. Yanfeng tells the professor that he owes him a great debt of gratitude and feels guilty for leaving without saying goodbye last time. Extremely irritated, Lu questions whether this wasn't a great injustice, as Yanfeng had cursed Zhang every day after suffering the deviation. Lu then decides it's fine, acknowledging their decisions, and states he will cancel both of their registrations later. Both students express their gratitude. Looking at each other, the two students are thrilled to finally have a chance to join Zhang's class. Lu begins to voice his frustration but notices that the young men have left in such a rush that he couldn't finish his thought. In a fury, he questions how Zhuan dares to steal his students and declares he won't be held accountable for what he's about to do. He calls Zhu Hong, who approaches after hearing the command. The long-haired, blue-haired man is instructed to deliver a challenge letter to Zhang's classroom and announce that during next month's freshman competition, there will also be a teacher evaluation. Zhu Hong complies and delivers the letter. However, an elder asks Lu about the challenge letter during the freshman competition, already aware of what Lu intends to do. Lu is livid about Zhang stealing his students and humiliating him in the process. The elder questions if Lu is truly willing to go through with a teacher evaluation against Zhang. Determined, Lu declares that he will make a wager, stating that if Zhang loses, all of his students will belong to him. Lu reveals that he initially planned to use Yanfeng to attract the attention of notable professors and eventually become an assistant teacher. But unexpectedly, his student transferred classes and Zhang, who scored 0 on his evaluation, further tarnished his reputation. Motivated, Lu Laoshi vows to reclaim his honor at all costs. In another scene, a girl with long purple hair remarks that she's been attending Lashy's lectures and is impressed. A pink-haired girl agrees, stating that Yang must already be convinced he'll be fine. In an unexpected turn, one of Lu's students bursts through the door of the classroom. He demands to see Laoshi and insists that he show himself immediately. Laoshi's students, however, question who this intruder is and how he dares to destroy their class. The girl with purple hair asks him not to be so impulsive, noting that the boy is ranked number 4 in the entrance exams. Confidently, the boy speaks of Lu Xun's challenge letter, revealing the upcoming teacher evaluation with her professor next month. The girl, puzzled, questions why Lu Xun would have an evaluation with Zhang. Lu Xun is the most popular teacher at the academy and has many excellent students. She wonders why he's challenging Xuan. Hong replies that Xuan offended Lu, which is why Lu wants to teach him a lesson. He then hands over the challenge letter to Xuan's students. He adds that if Zhang does not accept the challenge, he should simply admit defeat and apologize to Lu in his classroom. Afterward, Hong insults Xuan's student's teacher. A short-haired boy stops him and points out that he broke their classroom door and spoke disrespectfully about their teacher. He demands an apology. Hong mocks Xuan's student, questioning if he really expects him to apologize. Swiftly, Xuan's student counters with a fast attack, launching Hong back into the classroom. He declares that it will depend on his skill whether he can make him apologize. The purple-haired girl, enraged, accuses him of crossing the line. Then she attacks, but Hong manages to block her move and quickly counters with a kick to her face. Her classmate asks if she's okay, but there's no time as Hong lands a powerful blow to her jaw, leaving her stunned. The girl asks Zhao if she's alright, but Hong interrupts, asking how she ended up studying under Professor Xuan. Another student in the class, enraged, charges at Lu's student, questioning who he's calling a useless professor. Hong retorts that he's learned nothing and quickly challenges him to show the difference between them, unleashing a series of strikes on the boy, who can only defend himself. Soon after, the boy is thrown forcefully across the room. Hong declares that they are all trash, while most of Xuan's class stands in shock. He states that this is just a message for them to tell Xuan to admit his mistakes as soon as possible, or if he has enough courage to accept the challenge. At that moment, Xuan arrives in his class and questions Hong about what he just said. Hong replies that he will lose the teacher evaluation. Laoshi responds that it's not up to him to decide the winner and accepts Lu Xun's challenge. Hong thinks he's finally succeeded. He's expelled Huang Yu and Bai Sun, and now Xuan is on his heels. He doesn't understand why, given that Lu has hundreds of students. What's the problem with Wang Yan wanting to join his class? Hong leaves, declaring it was a wise choice. One of Xuan's students, panicking, warns that Lu's student was rude, broke the door, and injured them. He states that if they let him leave unpunished, others will pick on them in the future. Hong returns and mocks, asking if they haven't had enough of a beating yet, further humiliating Xuan's class by saying they don't even need a door since no one would dream of joining their class. Provoking further, he says if they want to stop him, he's standing right there in front of them. Xuan asks one of his students if he wants to teach the arrogant boy a lesson. His student, stunned, asks if he really can, and Xuan gives his full permission. He says that although the student is the weakest among them, he has the best self-control. Xuan promises to teach him moves that will defeat Lu Laoshi's student and make him pay for the door. He advises fairness during the fight and warns against overdoing it, emphasizing the need to maintain a friendly atmosphere. His students are shocked at their master's words. Hong, mocking again, asks if they're really going to make him pay for the door and beat him. He adds that if they manage to land a hit on him, he'll pay 1,000 gold coins. Laoshi immediately asks if he's serious about paying, regardless of the outcome. Hong replies that these people would need at least another 10 years of cultivation just to have a chance of hitting him. Smiling, Xuan says this is the perfect chance for his student to earn some money and tells Yuan Tao to go first, reminding him not to overdo it. Yuan, confused, is reassured by his master, who promises to teach him 3 moves on the spot that will guarantee victory. Hong appears confident in his victory and unbothered by the situation. Zhang gathers his students to watch him teach Yuan. The boy is nervous about what's to come. However, his classmate reassures him, saying their master would never suggest something meaningless. Despite his fear, Yuan steps forward, reasoning that since he's been beaten before, he can handle it again. The master gathers his students, who are eager for the lesson. Xuan demonstrates the first move, which involves opening the hands, moving the left hand forward, and then closing it. The second move involves stepping back with the left leg. Finally, the third move is to form a fist with the right hand and strike forward. However, the students are puzzled, questioning if that's really all there is. Yuan thinks the master must be joking, as these are basic movements and he's struggling to perform them correctly. Hong is incredulous, wondering if Xuan really expects his students to win using such ridiculous moves. Cutting back, the master tells Yuan he's taught him everything he needs to know and assures him that with just this, he'll win. The student is skeptical, saying he's not the best martial artist and the techniques seem unreliable. His classmates encourage him, insisting he can do it. Summoning his courage, he steps into the fight, still nervous about the outcome. Hong questions Yuan if he really wants to fight him. Then he charges at Yuan, who positions himself and adopts the fighting stance he just learned. His opponent notices that Yuan is reversing his movements. With full confidence in Laoshi, Yuan strikes and surprises Hong as this last attack was not reversed. He manages to knock Hong down by hitting his gate of life. On the ground, dazed, Hong tries to get up, but Yuan, brimming with confidence, asks him what he's doing on the ground when the fight isn't over. Terrified, Hong asks him to wait a moment. All the students are astonished and shocked, wondering how Yuan became so strong. One of his classmates says they were right to trust Laoshi. Their master tells Yuan to stop, reminding him he only asked for a lesson to be taught, not beating to the death. Yuan obeys his master and stops. Hong curses him, calling him despicable. Tao doesn't care and asks Hong if he'd like another lesson. Yuan says it's enough and what he did should suffice. He then suggests Zhen Yang take on Hong, saying it's the perfect opportunity to practice and not to waste the chance. Zhen agrees, but Hong, now alarmed, begins to regret staying. He questions why they're sending another student to fight him. He claims he's weak and now understands their tactics thanks to the big guy. He vows not to lose again as he wouldn't be able to face his teacher otherwise. Reluctantly, Hong accepts Zhen's challenge. As Zhen moves to strike first, Hong notices that he's aiming for his gate of life again. Hong successfully blocks the attack and with a smug smile says he won't fall for the same trick twice. But Zhen surprises him by landing a strike to his face with a quick, unexpected attack. Hong wonders why Zhen isn't using the 3 moves he was taught. Furious, Hong charges at Zhen with the intent to attack, but Zhen dodges and hits another vital point. Dazed and in pain, Hong lies on the ground, continuing to hurl insults. Zhen responds by saying there's nothing dishonorable about a fight and assures him he won't strike the same place again. Unexpectedly, Zhen delivers a powerful punch to Hong's chin. Hong, confused and hurt, wonders why he was hit again after being told it wouldn't happen. He doesn't understand why they won't give him a chance to recover. Dazed, Hong wonders why they're targeting only 2 specific spots. Hong, overwhelmed, declares he wants to forfeit. Zhen, puzzled, asks why. Thinking about it, Zhen is incredulous, given how battered Hong already is. Any more strikes might kill him. Their master, ignoring Hong's plea, tells Zhao Ye to take her turn next. Without hesitation, Zhao Ye steps forward and completely overwhelms her opponent. Her master then announces that it will be Ying's turn next. The other girl eagerly asks if she can go too. After all the students take their turns fighting Hong, Yuan demands that he pay 1,000 gold coins to each of them, totaling 10,000 gold coins plus the cost of repairing the door. Hong, lying dazed on the ground in the courtyard, questions why the total is 10,000 gold coins when there are only 5 of them. Yuan, confused by the question, calmly explains again that the total includes 1,000 for each of the 5 students, plus the cost of fixing the door, resulting in the final amount. Hong asks his master if he can repay by sparring with them. The master agrees, telling the students to go easy on him. Desperate, Hong offers to compensate in another way. In another scene at the Hongshan Academy in Lu Xun's class, an elder asks Lu if Shuan will accept the challenge. Lashi replies that it doesn't matter if he does or not. Furious, Lu declares that now that his student has been taken, he must teach Shuan a lesson. Otherwise, he won't be able to maintain his reputation at the academy. The elder agrees with a smile. At that moment, someone arrives, kneeling before Lu, revealing himself to be Hong, pleading for help. Initially, Lu doesn't recognize him because his face is covered in bruises, making him unrecognizable. Realizing it's Hong, Lu asks why he's in such a state when he was only supposed to deliver a message to Xuan. He asks what happened. Hong says he was beaten, but Lu doesn't understand why Xuan attacked him. Hong clarifies that it wasn't Zhang who attacked him but his students. Lashi, utterly shocked by this revelation, asks if it was Zhao and Zhen. He questions if they fought together and becomes confused, noting that their cultivation levels are far lower. Hong's master personally guided him, and even if the students fought him, they wouldn't stand a chance. Hong argued that it was easy at first, but Lashi had given them tips. That's why teaching those 3 movements became challenging. For a moment, it seemed like they were blessed by the gods, and he said Yuan was the first to fight him. Lu thought they had discovered the Gate of Life and that those 3 movements were only meant to distract him. But discovering the acupoint doesn't guarantee an easy victory in a fight. The opponent's reaction also plays a role in determining who wins in the end, and discovering the acupoint can put someone at a disadvantage. Lashi then said this must have been Zhang Zhuan's doing since his students wouldn't have figured out the Gate of Life on their own. He had thought the fight would be easy and boring, but it turned out to be quite interesting. Still, it wasn't a big deal in the end, and he promised to help Hong advance to the Danshan realm. Once successful, his acupoint would shift, allowing him to fight them properly. Hong thanked his master. Lashi questioned Hao, asking if he wasn't close to Shang Chen, and whether Zhang Zhuan was the best person to handle student affairs. Hao replied that he didn't want to put Elder Shang in a position where he would have to force Zhang's students to choose a new teacher. If Elder Shang did that, Zhang might take the issue directly to the other teachers and claim bias, which would complicate matters further. Suddenly, someone entered the room looking for Elder Hong Hao. Lashi asked what brought them there. The person asked if he had heard about student affairs. Lu was confused about what was happening. The newcomer explained that Elder Shang Chen had been removed from his position in the office, a direct order issued by the teachers' union. Everyone was shocked, wondering why he had been removed from his post. The visitor explained that Shang had tried to frame another teacher and was deemed unfair during a will comprehension test. In any case, the truth was uncovered by the union, and Shang was dismissed. Lu Laoshi thought about how Kaoxiang had also requested a will comprehension test and wondered if the 2 incidents were related. They speculated about which teacher had managed to incriminate Shang Chen and cause his dismissal. The elder commented that while Shang Chen was just a director, he had strong backing and close allies. It wasn't an easy feat for him to lose his position. The newcomer revealed that the responsible party was none other than Zhang Xuan, a so-called useless teacher at the academy. Hong, alarmed, asked if Laoshi was involved again. Everyone was incredulous, realizing how much Laoshi had affected their lives. Finally, they discovered Zhang Xuan was considered the weakest teacher at the academy. Zhang then questioned whether anyone could take the apothecary apprentice exam. The orange-haired girl wondered if he was serious about taking the exam, and he confirmed that he was if possible. She mentioned she knew where the exam was conducted and could take him there. Meanwhile, the protagonist pretended not to know and asked about the exam questions and whether he needed to read any preparation books. Annoyed, the girl realized he was flirting with her and decided she wouldn't tolerate his behavior. Nonetheless, she agreed to explain the nature of the test and the topics covered. Laughing, Suan remarked that it seemed very easy and asked where he could find books to read. In disbelief, the girl couldn't understand how he could think it was easy since she had been studying for years and still struggled with the tests. The 2 of them went to the exam hall. The girl greeted Mr. Lai, who asked if she was there to take the exam or pick up some books. She explained that it was Zhang who wanted to take the exam. The boy confirmed that he intended to take the test. Mr. Lai charged a 2,000 gold coin fee and said it would be refunded if Zhang passed. Zhuan casually paid the fee using the money he had taken from Yang Mo. The girl, watching this, assumed he was a wealthy playboy. He was informed that a test would take place in 4 hours and that he could participate. Realizing he wouldn't have time to return to school, he asked for some reference books to study while waiting. Unaware of the boy's abilities, Lai doubted that such a short amount of time was enough to prepare for the exam. Calmly, the boy says he won't buy any books and will simply skim through them quickly. The girl continues to believe he's lying and calls him a fraud. She watches the young man with the books and questions what he's doing, accusing him of rifling through the works. Her attention is caught by Lai, who tells her to leave the boy alone and read some books herself. Even so, she keeps doubting him, saying it's impossible to learn everything so quickly. As Zhang flips through the books, he realizes it's not as easy as he thought and that it's much more complicated than he imagined. Still, he continues searching, reflecting on how hard it is to become a remarkable teacher. 4 hours pass. Zhuan is called to enter as the exam is about to begin. As he enters the room, he overhears other candidates discussing how strict the examiner is and how it's impossible to cheat. Ouyang Sheng enters the room and calls for silence. He explains that if anyone is caught cheating, they'll be banned from taking exams for life. The rules are further explained, and the exam is divided into 3 stages. Quickly, the first stage, a written test, begins, and the students are given 2 hours to complete it. Zhang looks at the exam questions and finds some similarities with his previous life. The signal is given to start answering the questions. The protagonist smiles, believing that the alchemy books he imported into the library will come in handy. Touching the paper, he gains insight into the paper's quality but not the answers. He's slightly startled, realizing he can't access what he's looking for and refocuses on the questions. Concentrating, he manages to access exactly the answers he needs. Ouyang Sheng notices how quickly Zhang is answering the questions while others are deep in thought. The examiner assumes he's just another rich kid trying his luck. Still judging, he thinks rich kids will never pass the exam and should be barred from taking it. Zhang finishes the test, surprising everyone with his speed. They assume he's given up. Feeling triumphant, the protagonist asks when the next stage will begin. Sheng tells him to wait outside and says he'll be notified, otherwise he can go home. They question whether to grade Chuan's test, but Ouyang insists it'll only ruin his mood. Leaving the room, Li asks how the boy finished so quickly, with an hour still left. The orange-haired girl claims he gave up because it was too hard. Zhang laughs internally, wondering why she despises him. The test time ends, and the other students leave the room. Another man enters, asking how the test went. He says he's looking for an apprentice and asks if anyone passed. Grading the tests, Ouyang dismisses them as nonsense, saying the guild would be embarrassed to recruit such people. A test lies on the floor, and the examiner is asked why he hasn't graded it. Without hesitation, he says it's for an arrogant kid, and that he knows the boy won't pass. The older man requests to see the answers and draw his own conclusions. Cheng continues complaining that the wealthy know nothing about alchemy and shouldn't pass, but he's interrupted. The test is handed to him for review. Looking at the answers, the man is stunned. He can't understand how the boy answered so quickly and so well. Not a single answer is wrong. The dude was incredulous, wondering how this could happen since there isn't a single mistake. Ouyang remarks that the boy finished the test quickly and admits even he couldn't have done it. Outside the room, Zhang reflects on all the powers he has thanks to the Library of Heaven's Path. Zhu Wavo calls for everyone's attention. It's time to announce the results. The orange-haired girl feels triumphant, convinced the protagonist will be exposed when the results are out. Apprentice Apothecary Duman announces that 3 people passed the written test, with the first being Sun Tao, scoring 90%. Excited, the boy celebrates. Yuan Wenmin from Xivan City is the second to pass, also scoring 90%. Finally, Zhang Zhuan's name is announced. It's revealed he passed with a perfect score of 100%. Everyone else is shocked by the boy's score. The 3 successful candidates are called to participate in the second stage of the exam. The orange-haired girl feels triumphant, assuming the boy has been eliminated. When Zhang Zhuan's name is called, she realizes they're talking about him and is left astonished. Smiling, the boy says he's going to take the second stage of the exam. Confused, the girl keeps questioning how the boy managed to answer everything correctly. Li asks if the young man achieved a perfect score. The second stage of the exam is presented. In it, 10 types of herbs are displayed, and students have 15 minutes to write down their names, properties, and uses. The examiner explains that to pass, a 100% accuracy rate is required. Zhang observes the first herb and quickly accesses the contents of the Library of Heaven's Path. Once again, the student's confidence catches the attention of those nearby. He remains focused on his exam. Ouyang reflects on whether the young man might be an alchemy genius given his knowledge of both theory and practice. Extremely quickly, the boy finishes the exam, surprising everyone. In disbelief, the examiner starts to think that the boy might truly be a 1-in-a-million genius. The test is carefully reviewed. The examiner hands it to the other man accompanying him. After the exam concludes, the trio waits for the results and is informed that only one person passed the second stage. It is announced that Sun Tao from Luyuan City has passed. The young man is extremely surprised. Zhang finds it impossible, as he checked all his answers and did make a single mistake. In disbelief, the boy asks what error he made. The other students think it's absurd for him to question the apothecaries. The 2 examiners exchange glances. Ouyang says the boy confused fish-scale grass with dragon-scale grass, but assures him he can pass the next time he takes the test. The other examiner adds that with an open mind for learning and practice, he could become an apprentice apothecary. Zhang looks back and grabs at her, asking if the one cited as an error. They confirm it is, noting that the rhizome resembles fish scales and the branches and leaves are gray-green. Even so, the protagonist remains firm, stating that it is not fish-scale grass. Irritated, he says he cannot believe that even the examiners don't know which herb is part of the test. He continues defending himself and asks them to check the books, even citing the exact page and paragraph where the herb is described. Ouyang orders his assistant to fetch the book. With the book in hand, they open it to the page indicated by the boy. The examiner marvels at the boy's incredible memory for recalling every detail so accurately. Upon carefully analyzing the pages, the man reaches a conclusion. Before stating his judgment, Zhang continues explaining his points and why he is correct. Finally, he says that if they don't believe him, there's another way to identify the herb, by cutting the rhizome and seeing if a milky white liquid emerges. Quickly, one examiner takes the herb to check. Breaking the rhizome, he confirms that the boy is right. It is not fish scale grass. The other students realize that if this herb is wrong, Sumtao failed the test and did not pass. Ouyang admits he was wrong about the boy. Correcting himself, he announces that it is Zhang who passed the second stage of the exam. Sun is extremely frustrated. Zhang is awarded the Apprentice Apothecary emblem, granting him access to the guild's primary library. Zhang thanks them. The two evaluators compete for the boy's attention and favor, each wanting to become his mentor. Directly, the protagonist thanks them but says he doesn't want to work as an apothecary for now. Even so, Ouyang insists and asks the boy to carefully consider his offer. Sharing the same intent, the other man echoes this suggestion. Taking the opportunity, Zuan asks if there is a pill that can activate special human constitutions. Hearing the request, the duo is a bit shocked. They explain that such pills exist, but since each body is different, the pill's effectiveness can vary. Unbothered, Zhang asks if he can borrow some books and pills. Ouyang says only recognized apothecaries have access to the area where the books are kept, and even he cannot take them out. This information is confirmed by the other man. Trying to persuade the young man, the elder says that to read the books he must follow him and become a first-class apothecary. Furthermore, he would gain privileges in all guild buildings. Zhang, slightly weary of the conversation, understands that he won't be able to borrow those books. The examiner confirms that without certification he cannot access the books. To gain access, the protagonist decides to take the qualification exam to at least attempt to enter the library. The word attempt surprises everyone, as they didn't expect such humility from the young man. Ouyang explains that alchemy holds a high position among the 9 superior professions and requires years of hard work to become a recognized apothecary. Moreover, to earn the qualification, it's not enough just to know herbs and their differences. The duo continues discussing the difficulties of refining, prompting Zhang to question whether the exam is really that difficult. He wants to resolve the issue within 2 weeks, but believes he won't be able to become an apothecary in that time. Hearing 2 weeks again, the examiners are shocked. Laughing, Ouyang says that such ambition could break records if he became an apothecary before turning 30. Feeling defeated, Zhang says it's fine. He'll skip the exam and think of another way. Even so, the examiner offers comforting words, saying that years of hard work will eventually be rewarded. The boy feels bored as he learned everything in just 4 hours. Left with no other options, the protagonist leaves the location, stating that he has more important things to do. But he's stopped by Ouyang, who says there's another way besides pill refinement, and that it might suit him better due to his excellent memory. The two examiners exchange glances, trying to decide whether to reveal this method to the boy. Signaling to each other, Zhang grows irritated and demands to know what the method is. Ouyang explains that there are 2 types of qualification exams. The first is the common pill refinement practice. The second, however, is a debate. The protagonist ponders what a debate might entail. It is then explained that it involves discussing the 9 superior professions, with the most noble being that of a master teacher. They continue explaining that the master teacher profession takes time since they must instruct new students only after becoming professionals themselves. However, unlike pill refinement, the debate exam only requires mastery of theoretical knowledge to pass. He seeks further clarification, and they explain that he will debate with several official apothecaries, where even the smallest mistake can lead to significant errors. With the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhang judges it to be an easy pass. One examiner says that although the test seems simple, many prefer the pill refinement route. Zhang doesn't understand why and asks for an explanation. They explain that practical experience is essential for mastering any skill. The protagonist becomes thoughtful. Ouyang asserts that many teachers pass through pill refinement, while very few succeeded through the debate. This information worries the boy given the low odds of success. Nevertheless, he continues listening carefully to the examiner's advice. Determined, he believes he can master the debate and pass. He accepts the proposal. Everyone is extremely surprised by the boy's decision and asks if he understands the consequences of failure. Not knowing what they are, the boy asks what the consequences would be. The guild has a rule that if a candidate fails, they must pay 100,000 coins to each of the 10 participating apothecaries, in addition to receiving lashes. Zhang finds this quite severe and reflects on whether he should proceed. Ouyang says the boy is very talented and should study to try the refinement exam later. Even so, Zhang declares he has decided to take the debate exam and asks them to organize it. Again, the two are shocked by his response. He insists that he wants to do it immediately. The boy is warned that he knows nothing about the test or debate content and won't be able to compete with the alchemists. With access to the primary library, Zhang knows he can read some books. Finding it impossible, the examiners believe he hasn't even set foot in the library yet and already wants to debate. Confident, the boy says he'll visit the library in a few minutes, leaving the two even more perplexed by his decision. Zhang reassures them that there's no need to worry since he knows his priorities and doesn't act without certainty. Annoyed, Ouyang and the other man mock the boy, assuming he's just bluffing and won't manage the test. Laughing and mocking the situation, the men confirm that the test will take place the following afternoon. The boy simply thanks them. Before leaving, he asks where the primary library is. In Xuan's absence, the examiners comment that he is being overly hasty, yet they sense he's quite confident. Unsure of the source of his confidence, Ouyang suggests they send someone to follow him to the library to uncover more. A door then opens. The men ask if anything has been discovered about what Zhang is doing in the library. With a negative response, the person who went to investigate says he is only flipping through books. Ouyang is confused and questions what kind of books. Quickly, the investigator explains they are basic books on pill refinement, herb extraction, and the like. The dude doesn't understand the reasoning. Such books are fundamental for apprentices, and for someone preparing for a debate, they seem overly simple. They question if the investigator is sure. He replies that the boy is just skimming through and not reading deeply. Surprised, they wonder if he skimmed through every book on the shelves. Huoying speculates that Zhang might be looking for a specific text and can identify it just by touch. The Hangshan Academy dormitory is introduced. The girl with purple hair celebrates, saying she can finally resolve things. A man appears, asking if anyone bothered her after he left. She looks confused and says no one would dare to do that. Furthermore, she asks Uncle Yo not to be so paranoid, noting that Zhang Laoshi is kind and competent. The man laughs and tells her she doesn't truly know who can or cannot be trusted. He notices an herb in her hand and asks where she got it. Quickly, she replies that it was a gift from Zhang for when she feels nauseous. Outraged, Uncle Yo can't understand how a poor teacher could give such an herb to her. The young woman asks if there's something wrong with the herb, but Yo exclaims it's too precious, identifying it as the frozen sun mother herb. Holding the herb, the girl examines it closely. Yo begins to explain the value of the rare herb, stating it's worth over 100,000 gold coins. Confused, the girl asks if he's sure. Without hesitation, Yao confirms it. Carefully, the girl continues to analyze the gift. Even so, the man remains puzzled about how a poor teacher could have access to something so valuable. Feeling special, the girl remarks that her teacher not only created techniques for her, but also gave her an incredibly precious herb. The young woman decides she must give something in return. She asks Uncle Yao how much money he has on hand. He responds that he didn't bring much since he only came to pick her up from school. Quickly, the girl asks for help finding Zhang, but the man informs her that the teacher is likely at the apothecary guild. Undeterred, the girl speculates that Zhang bought the herb there and asks Yo to accompany her. Uncle and niece arrive at the pill-making area. They ask a woman if Zhang Laoshi is taking the apprentice apothecary exam, and she wonders aloud if the playboy is really a teacher. Smiling, the woman confirms he is, leaving the girl in disbelief. Yo comments that apprentices must memorize the properties and characteristics of 100,000 types of herbs. He explains that candidates can't pass without years of research and study, suggesting that Zhang might fail since it's all so difficult. The woman agrees that it's challenging but adds that Zhang aced the first test and is currently in the second stage. The man is shocked as the first stage is about herb characteristics, a test many fail. The so-called useless man answered everything correctly. He gave an herb worth 100,000 gold coins without hesitation, won his young lady's loyalty, and aced the exam. Yao wonders if Zhang is really useless. According to what he knows, Zhang was a genius who reached the peak of the Zhanqi stage at 16, but hadn't progressed since. Yet, this information doesn't match reality. Seriously, the woman comments that theory means nothing without practical skills, and the second stage involves identifying 10 herbs in a limited time. Even one mistake results in failure. At that moment, two students appear. The woman asks if they passed and how the test went, but they sigh and say they didn't. Then she inquires about Zhang Juan. One of the failed candidates says Zhang passed and is now an apprentice apothecary. The revelation surprises her. Xavier asks when they can see their teacher. Another boy replies that Zhang went to the library because he has a pill debate test scheduled for the following afternoon to obtain a better qualification. The woman is stunned by the news. He explains that it's a test with 10 officially recognized apothecaries and mentions it's the most difficult and punishing if one fails. Shaking, she comments that she read about that debate in books and confirms it's indeed the hardest. Participants must outmatch all 10 apothecaries and failure results in severe consequences. The man remarks that Zhang became an apprentice at a very young age and still has plenty of time. He doesn't understand why Zhang is in such a rush to take the debate. Scratching his head, the boy says he didn't know, but the teacher wanted to find books about special constitutions, and only a qualified apothecary could read them. It seemed he only had half a month since he had urgent matters to handle, so he needed the books. A reflects on the time frame and wonders if he is doing this to activate her constitution and improve her strength. Turning to the woman, she asks if failure in the debate results in severe punishment, but the woman doesn't know for sure. The boy says he heard Mr. Ouyang mention 3 punishments: 100,000 coins to each of the 10 apothecaries, 100 lashes, and being barred from retaking the exam for 10 years. The girl is astonished by the punishments. She thinks about everything he is doing and realizes she can't repay him, even if she were to give her life for him. At the library, Zhang reads all the books, but they are more about alchemy and special constitutions. It seems he needs to become an apothecary to gain access. However, for the test, the knowledge should suffice. Upon leaving, he notices 2 men talking. They were guessing why he went to the library. 30 votes for pretense, 1 for boredom, and 1 for researching topics. He's indignant that pretense is winning and asks what they are doing. Smiling, they say he must have gone to find a book but failed. One of them says that's fine, while the other lemons, spending the afternoon guessing out of curiosity. They inform him that the 10 apothecaries have been notified about the pill debate and will all be present the next morning, with the debate scheduled for the afternoon. Thanking them, Zhang bids them farewell as they argue over who lost the bet. The teacher can't believe they bet on him. Leaving the place, he encounters one of his students kneeling before him expressing gratitude. He asks her to rise, wondering if her ailment has been cured. He asks if she took the frozen sun mother herb and if it worked, while Yao watches from a distance. The man kneels too, admitting his ignorance and apologizing for misjudging Zhang. Zhang Xuan doesn't understand why they are acting this way given he has only just become an apprentice. He wonders if she knows his reasons and is moved, thinking the debate is extremely difficult and he risked everything for his students. He realizes these children wish to learn and that their gratitude made him understand the responsibilities he must uphold as a teacher. With that, he tells her to be at ease. Taking her hands, he says they are his students and he will guide them further down the path of cultivation, to reach their peak. A loud noise erupts and a golden book falls to the ground. Yo takes out some notes, saying he doesn't have the full amount, but this is part of what Bayu City will pay for it. Refusing, Zhang says it was just an herb. Still kneeling, the man says Zhang is generous for giving a 100,000 coin herb to the girl and regrets thinking it was a scam. Realizing the herb's value, trembling, Zhang thinks if he had known he would have taken the money. Noticing his reaction, the man asks if he didn't know the price. In his thoughts, Zhang mourns his lost gold coins. But aloud, he says he knew the price, but it meant nothing to him because she is his student and he would spend far more on her. Hearing this, the man praises him. The girl feels embarrassed, realizing she misunderstood and mocked him, mistaking him for a fraudster. Zhang says he will see them another day as he must prepare for the debate, leaving while lamenting spending 100,000 to show off and vowing not to do so again. At the Hongshan Academy dormitory, Yo asks his niece to tell him everything about the teacher and her ailment, and she begins recounting her class experiences. Shocked, the man comments that they didn't realize she had the pure yin body and let her learn the pure white jade maiden technique. He wonders how such a capable teacher had such a poor reputation. The girl replies that the Student Affairs Office conducted a will comprehension test because of Liu Yang and asks if he knows about it. Her uncle, surprised, asks if it's true that Shang Chen framed Zhang and thinks he really misjudged him. Although he didn't know the elder personally, he knew about his selfish and malicious grandson, so his grandfather couldn't be a good person either. Zhao Ya tells her uncle to be respectful, since he now knows what her teacher went through. Smiling, he responds that she should not worry, as he has uncovered the truth and knows what to do moving forward. However, since the grandfather and grandson caused him to misunderstand and defame Zhang, he would have to discuss the matter with the Lord to teach them a lesson, and his niece agrees. With determination, he asks her to spread the news widely. Smiling and signaling with his finger, her uncle assures her to leave it to him. In Zhang Zhuan's dormitory, he reflects on how easily he progressed, managing to open 20 points in one night with the divine art. However, he hears someone calling him and sees students at his door. Zhao Yanfeng says he took the liberty of leaving Mr. Lu's class and asks Zhang to punish him for any trouble he caused. Now Zhang understands what happened after all. No one would accept two students leaving to join a so-called useless teacher. He thanks him. In class, Zhang begins the lesson. His students are fascinated by a new cultivation system and philosophy, which seemed revolutionary enough to turn the cultivation world's ideas upside down. Ending the class, he instructs them to practice cultivation when they return home, and they all agree. Zhao realizes that the pill debate is about to start and needs to go. However, he hears someone calling him. It is the woman from the Apothecary Guild. She says Mr. Ouyang asked her to call him as the 10 qualified apothecaries have arrived, but he could still change his mind if he wished. With a smile, he assures her that he will not back out. At the guild building, John heads to the debate room, determined to participate in the battle and not fail. They arrive and the president greets him. The president tells Zhang it's not too late to reconsider, assuring him that with his talent, he could refine pills and become an apothecary in less than half a year. Zhang retorts that half a year is too long and thinks that if he had that much time, he wouldn't be seeking books at the Apothecary Guild. Convinced, the president stops trying to change his mind, thinking young people often don't retreat until they've experienced the difficulty firsthand. He invites everyone to enter. All 10 qualified apothecaries enter the room. One of them points at Zhang and asks if he's the one requesting the debate, calling him a brat. Others comment on how young he is, doubting that he could know enough even if he were qualified. The president intervenes, saying that while young Zhang demonstrated impressive knowledge of herbs by answering all questions on the written test correctly, though impressed, the apothecaries remain dismissive. One says refining pills requires not just knowledge of herbs, but also mastery of techniques and methods. He doubts anyone could become an apothecary with just basic knowledge. Tired of their dismissiveness, Zhang thinks that if the dead could refine pills, that man might manage 1 or 5. Coughing to get everyone's attention, Zhang remarks that the president didn't gather them to discuss age. Though he is young, it doesn't mean he's inferior to them in pill refinement. Irritated, one of the apothecaries accuses Zhang of arrogance and disrespect, asking if he's really comparing himself to them as just an apprentice. Mr. Ouyang, nervous, urges them to stop, reminding them they are here for a debate, not to flaunt their skills. He explains the rules. It's not a real debate. The candidate must answer questions. If they fail to answer or get it wrong, they fail. If neither party is sure of an answer, they can conduct a practical test. Questions must be limited to the knowledge of a 1-star apothecary and nothing beyond. Finishing, he asks if there are any questions, and everyone agrees there are none. As he's about to proceed, Zhang interrupts him. The apothecaries mock him, asking if he's scared and suggesting it might be his last chance to change his mind. Confident, Zhang asks if they think he should reconsider given their capabilities. One of them demands to know what Zhang means by that. Undaunted, Zhang Zhuan apologizes but asserts that everyone in the room is incompetent. An apothecary asks the president to stop Zhang, accusing him of disrespect, but Zhang counters that his remark wasn't intended to ridicule them. The professor asks Mr. Ouyang if the debate isn't too dull and suggests making it a bit more challenging. Nervous, Ouyang thinks the debate is already difficult enough, comparing Zhang's suggestion to walking into death's jaws. Zhang proposes that instead of just theory, one of the apothecaries should refine pills in front of him. He will then name the technique used and point out errors in the process. Annoyed, one apothecary asks if Zhang is there for a debate or just seeking excitement, accusing him of being an apprentice trying to find flaws in their refinement. The president wonders what happened to Zhang overnight and what he can do to prevent a disaster. Zhang asks if they are reluctant to agree because they fear exposing their flaws or losing their prestige when the faults are revealed. Standing up, Chen Jiang declares he will ensure Zhang's request is fulfilled. He admires Zhang's courage at such a young age and is willing to let him see his skills. The man states that refining pills is not merely theoretical, so he requests a cauldron from the president to demonstrate real pill refinement. Mr. Chang, known to have the greatest potential among them with 3 years of experience, will likely surpass even the president in time. He recently created a new technique and named it a few days ago. Instead of asking for its name, he challenges Zhang to identify the techniques he borrowed. The others are impressed by the mention of a new technique, speculating it might earn Chang a place in history. The president laments Zhang's fate, believing the new technique is too advanced, and another comments that even a 3-star apothecary would struggle with it. Zhang remarks that the man may seem kind, but is intentionally making things difficult for an apprentice. They prepare to begin. Chang retrieves items from a storage ring and starts the refinement process, throwing ingredients into the cauldron. Once the cauldron is lit, he begins manipulating the potion. Zhang is impressed, but realizes he cannot discern much from observation alone. It's no wonder they all looked at him as if he were crazy. Even the president couldn't identify the process just by watching. Unable to figure it out through observation, Zhang uses the Library of Heaven's path to detect flaws. Meanwhile, Chang completes the refinement process and declares it finished. The others are amazed at his speed, noting that he refined the basic tranquil heart pill faster than anyone could analyze. Zhang Xuan asks if Chang will admit defeat if he can name the 3 techniques used in refining the pills. Zhang starts by identifying the name of the new technique as Convergence of 10,000 Tribulations. The man visibly tenses. Zhang continues, listing 12 techniques Chang borrowed to refine the tranquil heart pill, including Rain of 10,000 Streams and Convergence of the Northern River. Whispering, Zhang mentions Chang also copied illusory silk hands from Mr. Bai Ming, frozen thread hands from Mr. Lin Mu, and techniques from Jin Chen and Mr. Du. With a smile, Zhang asks if he got it right, leaving Chang speechless. Still whispering, Zhang remarks that there's no need to detail everything since the others already know his methods. Placing a hand on Chang's shoulder, he urges him to continue. Trembling and with his head lowered, Chang Jin admits defeat. The others are astonished by his quick admission, noting Zhang mentioned only 2 techniques before Chang surrendered, prompting doubts among the group. Observing him, the apothecaries begin to realize Zhang is not as simple as he seems. Smiling at his victory, Zhang says he won't waste more of Chang's time and invites the next apothecary. Mr. Bai Ming steps forward, determined to end the debate quickly. Though unsure of what happened with his colleague, Bai refuses to let Zhang's arrogance go unchecked. Meanwhile, Chang Jin is preoccupied, wondering how Zhang discovered his plagiarism and what to do next. Resolute, Bai announces that while he doesn't know how Zhang bested Chang, he will change the rules to ensure it doesn't happen again. Zhang must observe the refinement and identify not only the techniques but also errors in flame control, herb mixing, and the overall process. The president, nervous and surprised, believes Zhang is doomed. Zhang dismisses the chatter and urges Bai to start. Bai, annoyed by Zhang's arrogance, begins his refinement process using flame control techniques identified as Hands of 1,000 Mountains. The other apothecaries marvel at Bai's skill, acknowledging the difficulty and complexity of the technique. They wonder how Zhang will respond. When Bai finishes, he exhales and challenges Zhang to name the flaws and the technique, insisting Zhang will never earn his respect. With fingers pressed to his forehead, Zhang coolly states he'll get straight to the point. He identifies the technique as Flame Hands of 1,000 Mountains and explains its process step by step, providing improvements to simplify the refinement. However, Zhang points out a glaring flaw. The technique limits the pill's quality, making improvements impossible. It's suitable only for mass production of low-quality pills, and Zhang bluntly states that learning such a method is pointless. Unless they feel they have no potential and give up, Zhang asks the apothecary if he was correct. Mr. Oyen couldn't believe that after being the leader of one of the 4 great families in a 1-star apothecary, Bai Ming was being described by Zhang as a mediocre man with no future. Bai Ming warns Zhang not to be overly proud, stating that his words meant nothing unless he could identify the errors made during the refinement process. Starting with the basics, Zhang explains that every apothecary must master flame control in the cauldron, and asks Bai if he understands this. The cauldron may be a standard size, but Zhang says he will set that aside for the moment. However, even with herbs following the recipe, proper flame control, and the cauldron, pills can differ from their intended quality because even minor differences can worsen the results. He details that the cauldron is 219 centimeters tall, 96 centimeters wide, and has 13 openings, mentioning its exact age and creation date. He states that using that cauldron to refine a meridian rejuvenating pill would deplete its effects and energy, resulting in insufficient medicinal potency and low-quality pills. The other apothecaries are astonished as they had no idea a cauldron could so significantly influence pill refinement. Mr. Ming argues that the cauldron was provided by the guild, making it impossible for Zhang to know so much about it, including its height and origin. Regarding the flame, Zhang explains that it is fueled by celestial charcoal, the best for pill refinement. Normal charcoal retains only 37% of its heat when burned, whereas celestial charcoal retains 46%. Zhang emphasizes that these are basic apothecary facts and asks if Bai had considered them before refining the pills. Bai, now nervous, admits to himself that he hadn't measured the cauldron or accounted for varying temperatures, as doing so would have taken days to refine the pills. Walking closer, Zhang announces that he will now point out the errors made during the refinement process. To refine that pill, 47 types of herbs are required. Among them, some are compatible with other ingredients, while others are not, which could lead to failure. Zhang explains that Bai first added the Gamma Heart herb, which has calming properties and is resilient to temperature changes. However, Bai's mistake was adding the dividing palm flower 7 breaths later. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tab's channel.